Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, of course, the home of America's #1 shock jock, Mr. Jim Cornette. I am the host, the great Brian Lass, and here he is, a shocking individual, if I say so myself, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Yeah, let me tell you something, Brian Lass. I'm going to shock your jock here in a second, pal. I'm going to make your knees freeze, your liver quiver, and your spleen turn green, because even though you just preambled this program, and this is your show, by the way. I'm merely here to provide the entertainment, the education, the enlightenment, and the fun. You're here to host it. But the way you just brought everybody in as if they are all indeed your friends may not count for me here, because you've spoiled my mood again, is what you've done. See, I started the day off on a positive note. Corky and his chainsaws are humming in the back, cutting up that tree that fell over the other day. Sun shining, the birds are twinkling, chirping, whatever the birds do. I don't know. I'm just they making noise.
Yeah.
I saw the deer this morning running around frisky, and I'd seen money in the bank. What? What's the matter with you?
Frisky. The deer is frisky.
The deer's frisky. They're running around frisky this morning. And I've seen money in the bank, but I managed to recover from the bad parts, and I was just trying to concentrate on the good parts, because we're going to talk about that today. And then you intervene and say, "Oh, but Jim, did you hear what happened on Raw?" And I said, "No, I did not." And you said, "Oh, but you must see it." And then you sent it to me. And then I had to see it. And now I'm cranky again. It's your fault. Blame you. I put the blame on you.
Well, I feel like this show should be a reflection of modern wrestling. 1 step forward, 3 steps back.
Well, in this case, they took 1 step forward, tripped over their own dick, and fell all the rest of the way down the hill, in my estimation. But that's for you and to people in the cult of Cornette to decide as we move along through this program here today. I got all my shit right here in front of me.
So I can do that too. What are you?
I've got
come
all
on,
my
Tito
stuff
Puente.
here.
Let's go.
I got notes. I got pens. I got Tito Puente. The only podcast of the week that will utter the name Tito Puente. Let's send some well wishes out at the beginning of the program. I don't know if you're aware of this. I just recently became aware of this. It happened not in the terribly distant past, but we're belated with it. But I would like to wish a happy 100th birthday to the mother of the incomparable Sweet Stan Lane. Jean Lane herself is now 100 years old.
Wow, and happy birthday.
Those Lanes have incredible genetics. And Stan's dad, Wally, was, my God, 90-something when he passed here a few years back. And no wonder Stan looks so good. He's only 86 himself.
He's going to be the last member standing, isn't he?
Well, we've always known that, because he's a fucking freak. He's a freak of nature. But anyway, 100 years old, and she's living in an assisted living place, but it's not like, she loves it. They cook for him, and they have music and, get-togethers, and she's got a nice little apartment, and she's just flittering around happy as a clam.
When the staff heard that her son was a wrestler, they said, "We didn't know you were in the wrestling business. She's so much nicer than that last guy, Mr. Gagne."
Hey, no, that was she's not in Minnesota. No, they put an embargo on wrestling clientele up there, I hear. But anyway, she's doing great. Better than probably all of us. She doesn't have to watch wrestling anymore now that her son doesn't do it.
Did she watch it when Stan was active?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not like, she knew all of the programs and the angles, and she would watch him. Yes, they were just tickled. As a matter of fact, for Christmas, the year that Stan joined the team, Crockett used to give us, this is the only promoter that ever gave a decent Christmas break that I've experienced was Crockett Promotions. They would shut down for either 9 or 10 days before Christmas, depending on what day Christmas fell on, right? To work it out where they could get a weekend in and then skip 9 or 10 days or whatever it is and then come back on Christmas Day. You never ran Christmas Eve. That would just be foolish. And then Christmas Day would be one of the biggest days of the year, if not the biggest besides Thanksgiving. Anyway, so over this Christmas break, I sat down with my VCRs that I had rigged up in my house at that time. This was 1987. So I had the Sony HLF 1000 Super Beta and the Mitsubishi Super VHS. What was it? Mitsubishi U80. For those of you video nerds out there, it had a jog shuttle wheel, frame by frame, advance, insert editing. Both of those machines did. So anyway, I made a big highlight video of the Midnight Express to popular rock and roll music of the day.
What day?
And
What day?
Of that day.
Of that day?
Of that day.
Of the late 80s?
Yes. And put it all together, just highlights and everything, and gave Stan's parents a copy, and she just loved it. But so in answering your question, she would watch his stuff and would come to the matches every so often around the North Carolinas to see, or around North Carolina to see Stan, not regularly, but yes, they were into him being a wrestler and were proud of him.
And I could see her enjoying Stan and the Midnight Express. I mean, everyone does. It was the best tag team of that era. But I also have seen the reaction of people to the Fabulous Ones videos, including my father, who walked in on me dubbing one of those tapes and had the wrong impression of me for a while. Did they see all those videos of Stan and Steve? First of all, who is directing Stan and Steve saying, like, okay, now turn, point your asses at each other, and
Jerry
smile?
Jerry Jarrett. No, here's the thing. And let me just say this. The Fabulous Ones videos, not necessarily the first couple where they were just,
in
just
strobe
standing
lights, that's all right. That's
just standing in front of strobe lights to Billy Squire and posing with their jackets on. It was very elementary. But when they got
to chewing hay, when they got to chewing hay and hanging out in barns and bathtubs.
Hey, I was in that barn also. I made $1,000 easily out of going to that barn that day on the pictures that I took. You can imagine how much money they made. But the point is, and the ZZ Top videos that they were doing impressions of, as Gomer Pyle would say, that they were taking off on, those were the biggest videos on MTV that season, 82, 83, the ZZ Top stuff with the antique car and the hot girls. So they were redoing the ZZ Top videos with Stan and Steve, and they got the antique car. I think maybe Jerry Jarrett had that. I don't know. But the ones of them in the hot tub, the ones of them working out in the gym, some of them, I will be the first one to admit, have not aged well to where you would think, my God, is this straight out of the pages of Blue Boy magazine, right? But I can testify when they first aired, the women went absolutely fucking insane over these two guys. And it wasn't even coming off that way to the male fans. They were pissed that all their fucking girlfriends were in love with Stan Lane and Steve Kern. But it was a different time with the 80s MTV thing. They were letting a lot of shit go that, you would look at in a different fashion just years later. So, some of the Fabs video, but I'm telling you what, in Jerry Jarrett's barn, on the bales of hay with their fucking blue jeans unsnapped and chewing on a fucking thing of fucking, not hay or clover, whatever the fuck it was. God damn, the snakeskin bands around the fucking hats and the leather jackets. Oh, and the Beat It video on the motorcycles with the leather chaps and the fucking sunglasses and the sleeveless fucking vests. We could not print those pictures fast enough that every female at the matches between the ages of 10 and 65 we were dealing them out like fucking playing cards. I brought up right at the hottest part of the Fabs, right after one of those videos played, I brought them a box of like fucking 3,000 to 4,000 4x6s and 300 color 8x10s. And they sold them $1 a piece for the 4x6s and $3 for the 8x10s, right? It's fucking 40 years ago. And they were ordering more within 10 to 14 days. It was just incredible.
In the 90s, in the Northeast and in the South, because I attended shows both places, it was very common to see a babyface come out at intermission or before the show, stand at their gimmick table, sign autographs. You're selling all these Fabulous Ones photos. Did they ever, I've never asked you this, in Memphis at that point, did the babyfaces actually go to the table? Or did they?
Oh, God, yes.
They did, okay.
Because they're pushing their shit. Because here's the thing.
I didn't know if the Fabulous Ones were actually working at the gimmick table, like standing there.
Oh, well.
As opposed to someone just selling their photos while they're in the back.
That was the best place to scout the talent, at the gimmick table. Because everybody's going to come up once they see the boys, right? Now, I will admit this evolved over time and it depended on the town. Back in the mid-70s, early 70s, when I started going to the matches, really, most of the top baby faces, you would never see them, right? Because what was on the souvenir stand was those old 50-cent black and white 8x10 pictures of questionable printing. Scott Teal had taken a bunch of them, but they might just run them off on not even glossy paper. Just they look like fucking Xeroxes on stiff paper. And you know, the guys weren't making a lot of money on that. But not to pat myself on the back or toot my own horn, but see, when I started taking those color pictures and they started featuring those, well, the picture sales went up drastically. And so in the old days, it used to be like George Goulas would come out and stand at the picture table every night he was booked everywhere until somebody would ask him for his autograph, right? But you never saw Jaggy Fargo. You know, some of the other baby faces, Dundee might be around the side at the concession stand where he could get somebody to fucking get him a drink and scout the talent. But just in and out, whatever. But then as they started making more money on these pictures, especially, see, here's the thing, at the north end, Louisville, Evansville, Lexington, the spot shows up here for Christine Jarrett. She would take a cut for the office that she would then turn around and pay her drivers and ticket sellers and the people selling the merchandise for us, because we were selling magazines, programs also. So she would, and that was fair. So the guys would get part of the money. But down at the other end, Memphis and the big spot shows, I'm sure Jonesboro, Arkansas, you know, once a month on Saturday, what are close to Memphis, Bonnie Coffey, Guy Coffey's wife in Memphis and close surrounding towns was running the picture table with all of her girls that used to hang out at the table. And of course, there was always a bottle of some adult beverage under the table that the girls would be, you know, nipping on with Ms. Coffey. And she didn't take any money or any commission or anything. So the guys would be out there as much. If in Memphis, especially if it was a big show, main event match, and Jerry Jarrett was saying, they get back in the fucking locker room. But they would go out and push their shit wherever they could because they were making all the money off of it. So they're buying every one of those $1 pictures they bought from me for 35 cents and sold for $1 at 65 cents a piece. What's 65 cents times 1,000? 65,000. You know, they make an extra fucking. They could potentially sell 1,000 pictures of themselves in a Mid-South Coliseum that had goddamn 8,000 people in it, right? So anyway, it just depended on. But yes, they would come out and push their shit, and then as honestly as the territory business started going down in the mid-'80s with the expansion and everything, the gimmicks became more important, and they sometimes started making more. Well, Stan and Steve were on a $1,500 guarantee apiece as the Fabs per week with Jerry Jarrett when they got over and got hot, and they were making more money on their pictures and T-shirts than they were on wrestling. So, and this is 1982, 83, 84. I'm not trying to sully anybody's reputation with the IRS just in case paperwork doesn't match up, but it is almost 40 years ago. So the point is, if they're making $1,500 a week wrestling and $1,500 or maybe $2,000 a week a piece sometimes on the gimmicks, $3,000, $3,500 a week, 35 years ago or more, what does that work out to today? That was a nice little fucking spot.
You brought up George Goulas. I don't know why this is going around again, but it is, and several people have sent it to me. I'm sure you've seen it. The ad for Goulas and Tojo's Oriental and Greek foods.
Yes!
Grand opening week, June 14th to 20th, 511 Donaldson Pike.
Donaldson Pike. Does it list their specialties? Because I have one of the business cards over here somewhere on my shelf.
Yeah, there's a card in the ad. The ad says, and this is in quotations, have you ever wanted to step into a professional wrestling ring? How about you try this one? Stop by and see it for yourself. So I guess they can have a ring out front for the grand opening. Nashville's most unique carry-out restaurant, featuring authentic Oriental foods and Greek dishes. By popular demand, famous Greek pastry, that's how it's written. By popular demand, famous Greek pastry, which includes everyone's favorite, baklava. Welcome. And then the card says, specializing in cooking with a flair of the Orient and a touch of the Greek Isles.
No, come on now. They were serious about this because Tojo legitimately was a great cook, right? And I mean, I don't know all the details here. This was sometime in, I would say, late 70s, 77, 78, 79, that era. Jared had broken off, was doing his own thing. Nick was still running Nashville and Birmingham and Chattanooga, and things were not horrible yet. And Tojo being a great cook, I can actually see George sitting there someday. We ought to open up a restaurant, Tojo. But they had to have Greek food because George and Nick are Greek, and they were the ones putting up the money because I guarantee you Tojo didn't have any money in it. And that's what the public has always wanted, a place where you can go and in one stop you can get Oriental food and Greek food with a flair.
Okay, so you say Tojo's a good cook and that excuses it. Was George known as a cook? I mean, what's
no,
George's
but they have to have Greek food because the Goulases are putting up the fucking money. Hey, and then, there was a lot of things going on at Jackie Fargo had a pizza place, or a pizza place in his name in Nashville for a while. The specialty pizzas were like the Fargo, the Atomic Drop and the something else. And the Fargo Strut was the one with everything on it. So somebody, I don't even know who, had put up some money and used Jackie's name for a pizza place. Lawler at one of the malls in Memphis in mid-late 70s had a slam burger plays that, and once again, Lawler in Memphis has had everything from restaurants to now he's obviously part owner of one of the owners of the Lawler's Bar and Grill on Beale, and also the barbecue place he's got. But this was just somebody that came up with some money and leased his name, and Jerry Lawler's Slam Burger was at the mall, and he had his name on and face on billboards for a fireworks place. The last time I was down through town, you couldn't drive 5 miles without seeing Lawler and something fireworks. He sold everything in Memphis at one point or another. But then with poor Nick, after the late 79, when his territory kind of was blimp, and it was 80 that Jared ended up giving him kind of a mercy payoff and buying the rest of it, and they integrated everything. But in 2 years before he folded up, this was just the year after Jarrett split off and went his own way, because Nashville, Chattanooga, Birmingham, and those towns had been profitable at that time for Nick Goulas for over 30 years. So he turned around and said, fuck it. He built a new office building. Michael St. John told me this. He was the announcer, worked for him at the time. He built a new office building there in Nashville and moved into it and paid cash for it. The cash that he pulled out of his fucking safe, like $100,000 or what, just ridiculous amount of money. And then 2 years later, he's fucking. So you can go from the penthouse to the outhouse or the other direction quickly in the wrestling business.
He also thought the NWA was going to come to his defense.
Yeah.
It was just the Sheik. And then, the NWA kicked him out.
Left the Sheik twisting in the wind, too.
Well, this has been your early history lesson here on the show. There'll be more history later on. But, of course, Jim, we have a big review. Money in the Bank.
Show. And I'd be the last one to try to direct what you're doing.
Thank you. So we have this big review, Money in the Bank. Of course, this is a big event every year. Last year was a bit of a shit show. This year they have fans again. The crowds are hot. I'm assuming you did watch the entire event. Did you actually see the pre-show?
Well, let me tell you about this pre-show business. See, I, unlike most people, still got the regular television pay-per-view. That's why I, unlike most people, didn't have a bunch of headaches trying to watch this show from a technical standpoint, because at least that worked. I heard that there were other problems with the Peacock. The Peacock was broadcasting. That's NBC's pay service. The Peacock was broadcasting the thing sort of like Go Fight Live used to for the Ring of Honor internet pay-per-views back in 2012. And a lot of people were up in arms about the Peacock having shitty service. Was this what you're hearing too? About the Peacock?
I experienced it. I did not get to see the men's Money in the Bank match.
Well, damn it all to hell. Damn their eyes. Actually, they did you a favor then. So I understand there were, but no, as to your question about the pre-show issues or match, I ordered the pay-per-view and there's a countdown show. So I taped the countdown DVR'd the countdown show as well. And it was some guy in a suit standing there pitching to videos. They played 3 times every 10 minutes. Basically the what did they used to call it back in the old days when people actually watched that? The Barker show or the pregame thing, but they had no match on there. So I was not given the what was the pre-show match again? You mentioned it before and I forgot.
It was the Mysterios defending the tag titles against the Usos. Right. And the Usos won the tag titles, and it was a really good match.
Well, you had mentioned on the phone when I spoke to you, make sure you watch the pre-show match because the people were actually dominant. They liked dominant. Of course, you got to remember these crowds now are like guys that have just gotten out of prison after 7 or 8 years. You could find a girl that doesn't have to be too attractive. She could be so ugly when she goes to the bank, they turn the cameras off and it would still be, yeah. But anyway, so the fans were ready to like things, but I didn't see the Mysterios match. I saw their cameo appearance on the actual show later on, though. They were there for a second.
And that relates to this, actually, now that I think of it. Their running in later on relates to the fact that they lost the tag titles here to the Usos.
Their running in later on relates to the fact that there's some lazy booking going on. But anyway, so I just had to, unfortunately, watch the pay-per-view with no technical difficulties from the Peacock, the way that it was broadcast on pay-per-view from Dickies Arena in Dallas. Dickies Arena. Where's Murdoch when you need him? It used to be, or not Dallas, but Fort Worth. The Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I used to live there. They kind of combined the two. But they used to have Reunion Arena, Texas Stadium. Now they've got Dickies Arena? Is this how far it's fallen?
Oh, it can fall.
It can fall even farther.
More, yeah.
I noticed a great crowd, obviously full house, jam-packed. I saw almost no masks whatsoever, and I'm seeing that Texas is around 40% vaccination rate, so you would have thought 6 out of 10 people you'd think would be wearing a mask. But Maybe it's higher in the Metroplex, the vaccination rate, like 100%, because nobody was wearing a fucking mask. Anyway, here's what I did, Brian, to stay in a good mood about this thing, because I wanted to give this pay-per-view, fans are back, they're counting on this. I wanted to give it a fair shot. I wanted to like as much as I could possibly like. I wanted to be in as good and as calm and as fair a frame of mind as I possibly could. And the first match, I saw that it's a ladder match, a Money in the Bank ladder match with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with 8 different girls: Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Nikki Ash, Natalya, Tamina, Zelina, Wait a minute. We found the goddamn counter chant to Solo Comerato a Go-Go. It's Natalya, Tamina, Zelina, Naomi. Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Nikki Ash, Natalya, Tamina, Zelina Vega, Naomi,
Asuka.
Well, it fits the chant better. Anyway, 8 girls, all with backstories that they showed during their entrances. It was 15 minutes into this show before the bell rang to start the match, and then they announced there'd be no submissions, no countouts, no disqualifications. I'm looking at multiple ladders, and Alexa Bliss is in this thing, and I say, you know what? No fucking way. So this is the one that I skipped in order to be able to watch the rest of the program. Did I miss anything?
This was the match that I kind of unleashed on my kids in the living room while I was making dinner.
You made your kids watch this?
Well, the girls like seeing the girls do funny things. They all thought it looked like it was a lot of fun, which is pretty telling. The only note, I guess, is that it was won by, I guess the way they said it on TV was almost superhero Nikki A.S.H.
Yes, almost superhero.
Yes.
Yeah.
No relation to Tim Ash.
No relation to Bill Ash.
Or Bill Ash.
But I actually think that Nikki is probably better suited for a career making boots than she is wrestling, so she should be related to Bill Ash in some kind of way. Anyway, moving on from that thing. The match, not the one poor girl. I'm not calling her a thing. I will say that she's so ugly, she went to a plastic surgeon and said, make me look like I did 30 years ago. He added a tail. But anyway, so the Usos were celebrating their tag win over the Mysterios in the back that we didn't get to see on the pay-per-view. Now, here's the thing. The people buying the pay-per-view pay more money than anybody else, and they don't get as much shit as they do on the other thing. So, on the Peacock, you know, the plumage of a peacock is just bright and colorful, right?
Keep doing it. I think you should keep doing it.
But their service is not bright nor colorful at the Peacock.
No, it's not. And you couldn't pause it. At least I couldn't this time. At WrestleMania, I think it was WrestleMania, or the previous pay-per-view, they all blend together at this point. Yes. You could pause it. I couldn't pause this one live.
Well, and also there's no on-screen fast-forward, so you can't see when you're skipping what you want to skip when you get to something you might want to see. Anyway, which is a lot of about if you just fast forward through the entrances on a 3-hour WWE program, you cut the time in half. Have you ever figured that out?
Makes sense.
It just takes for I can even understand milking it now that the people are back, right, in the arena. But for the past fucking year and a half, they've been taking forever to get to the ring in an empty arena. I've seen people cross minefields in a quicker fashion, blindfolded. Anyway, all right, I'm leaning over here trying to get my shit. So the Usos were celebrating the tag title win that we didn't see. Reigns was still being condescending to them. He referred very quietly but pointedly to the one Usos issue And the people were laughing at you. Heard the fans that they had the audio from the arena when he's and you and they close in on him. How did he get away with this? He fucking gets this. I mean, I'm not even trying to blister the guy, but who else would get his like 4th DUIs while working for the company and win a tag team title the next week? How is he? He's Teflon. Does he have pictures? Maybe he's the one that got Baby Doll's envelope. That's for the older fans out there. Anyway, finally he hugged them and they had a family moment. I thought you were going to go off on some tirade and tangent about how he should have been punished and what penalty should have awaited him for his misconduct and bad behavior.
They put the tag titles on him. Isn't that punishment enough?
Yeah, you got me there.
There. Sorry, ma'am.
All righty. The Raw Tag Team Championship. Now, we've just seen one set of tag team champions. And we did this, by the way, on the experience this past week where we went through the roster and it took us 5 minutes to read the list of champions in this company. And some people still say, well, that's different programs. Oh, goddamn. Yeah, you know what? There's different fucking programs when the NFL shows games all over the place also, but they still only have one world champion. Anyway, so the Raw Tag Team Championship was on the line. The Viking Raiders against AJ Styles and his giant, personal colossus, Omos, who is almost ready to be on television, but not quite. Did you like the clips of the Viking Raiders throwing a fucking axe at like a Renaissance fair to make them really fearsome and, it's cosplay Vikings now. And I like these guys. These were the guys that were War Machine, right?
Yeah.
The tag team before they went there and
Ring of Honor, yeah.
Yeah, and had, a goddamn Game of Thrones throw up on them. This gimmick is just... And also, it just, they rotate. This is not new. They do it all the time, but I don't know if I've noted it before to speak publicly about it. Why can't they just have a fucking announce team? When these pay-per-views or big events or whatever they call them now, when they actually made millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars per night, they had one announce team, right? Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler for the majority of them. You knew that's why those voices were ingrained in people's consciousness. Now they've got different announce teams for every match on a show. They just bop in and out. Fuck. Anyway, the packages and highlights got out of hand in this first half of the program because, especially with the girls match, but this one too, we were 45 minutes in this show when the bell rang for the second match. And as I mentioned, War Machine, I thought was a great tag team, but they look so fucking, I don't know whether it's cheap or outlaw or goofy or just non-threatening or out of place or comedic. Whatever the look is, they look like job guys. They've made them look like job guys. And I didn't understand this whole fucking match because, again, the way that they put it together, they're not trying to make Omos the big fearsome fucking heel. They're trying to apparently make him the babyface because they build everything to getting him in to do something. And people kind of like it whenever he does, even though he don't know what the fuck he's doing. Well, they stopped liking it toward the end of this, but at the start, they were liking it. But he starts out, he's in for 20 seconds, beats both the baby faces up, because the Viking Raiders have to be the baby faces. One would think. Then both the Viking Raiders beat up AJ, and he sells like a baby face, but then he makes his own comeback. And right then, he cold tags Almost. I'm going to start calling him Almost because it's easier than saying Omos. Almost in.
Edward James Omos.
Yes. And Edward James Almost threw AJ over the top rope into a Hurricane Rana on Eric on the floor, which was impressive as fuck. It was all AJ plus almost being a giant. But now the most impressive move in the match so far is from the heel team, and the people are cheering. Then Eric cold tags Ivar, and he makes a comeback. And Ivar is the bigger one with I've said this before, with a good gimmick and somebody taking him seriously and a push behind him and the stuff that he can do. He could be a money drawing heel that you could then switch babyface because of the things that he can do. But the way to get a guy over like that initially is as a heel, but take advantage of his size and make him, a Crusher Blackwell, right? Whatever the fuck. But anyway, almost got in with Ivar and almost slammed Ivar, and the announcers shit their pants, disregarding the fact that they had done a spot earlier where fucking Eric, the little Viking, picked Ivar up and slammed him on top of fucking AJ. So when the giant slams him later on, he got him higher up because he was taller, but he's still been slammed 5 minutes earlier. And then they slowed the pace down, and the people knew that the Viking Raiders were not going to win this. They could just tell. So therefore, it started. Ivar hot tagged Eric at one point. I use hot tag in quotation marks, and not a fan peeped. It was like dead silence. It was silence before he tagged him, and it was continued silence. Then Ivar runs across the ring. And now, and bear in mind, folks, this is the way that I fucking pick shit apart when I'm talking to the fucking boys and we're watching a tape of whatever they've fucking done. If they did something good, I'm going to tell them that, but also, for fuck's sake, how are they trying to build this giant? But Ivar runs across the ring and nails almost with a kind of a shitty punch or forearm and almost jumps off onto the floor and lands on his feet. And then stayed from that one forearm standing on the floor outside watching them double team AJ Styles, his partner, and the guy he's supposed to be the bodyguard of. But then AJ, the heel, makes his own comeback again against both the baby faces, fucking sidesteps one to the floor and fucking has the other one in the corner, and then hot tags his heel partner almost. And almost Ivar has hung up on the top turnbuckle, so almost goes over and picks him up off the top turnbuckle so he can press him over his head. That's an impressive thing. This 300-something pound guy, he's already up there, right? So, because I don't know if I would trust almost with having the coordination to get me up over his head if I was 300-something pounds, but he's already up there. So he picks him up and he's got Ivar over his head. But then he doesn't press slam him. He just dropped him face first. He already had him up. All he had to do was turn him. My God, you could have a dead body like that and give them a fucking full press slam. They don't have to do anything. So he drops him face first and puts his foot on Ivar's chest and gets a 2 count, and Ivar kicks out. So now, regardless of the lackadaisical nature of the cover, the first cover that the Giant makes in the match is a 2 count. The guy kicks out because he's not even trying to begin with. Did you ever see anybody kick out of a foot to the chest if Andre put it on him?
No, the entire way they're using this Giant, who looks incredible, is ridiculous.
And the announcers said the stunned silence in the arena. No, it was silence, but it wasn't stunned. They may have been stunned at what they were seeing like I was, but more like it was disinterest in the arena. So then Ivar tags Eric back to no pop. And then both of them, both the baby faces, made a shitty comeback on the Giant almost. And almost, did you see almost selling? They had told him, don't go off your feet. Don't go down. So he was trying to sell and register while still standing up, these guys hitting him wherever they could, and he looked like he was doing the Elaine Bennis dance from an episode of Seinfeld. I thought he was having fucking spasms. And then they clotheslined almost out to the floor where he landed on his feet again, still hadn't gone off his feet, as the announcers were mentioning. No, he didn't go off his feet. He just stood out there while they beat AJ up some more. He just, instead of being even knocked down and unable to come to the rescue of his, smaller partner, he's just standing there watching it on his feet. And then after AJ got beat up, he cold tagged almost again and almost staggered in, because as he was coming over the fucking top rope, one of the Raiders came over and nailed him, and he got hung on the goddamn rope for a second. He couldn't get out and he couldn't get in. And then he gets in, and then he just grabs Eric by his head and picks him up and drops him like the old hanging tree slam, like Damage's brain damage in OVW, or didn't Matt Bloom do that? Prince Albert or something, the head choke slam, double choke slam. He just threw the guy down, boom, 1, 2, 3. This was just fucking rotten. And AJ Styles is a great worker in any capacity. The Viking Raiders, we know that they were a good tag team once upon a time before they came to this company and got this shitty gimmick, but they can do some shit. Almost, obviously, needs to be taken back and polished some. But who put this match together?
I can't answer that. And, again, when you look at this giant, what mystique is left? What have you not seen? You've seen him take bumps.
The mystery.
Yeah, what's left?
The mystery is what he's going to fuck up next. It's going to be funny to laugh at. He's starting to get an El Gigante vibe to him. Go ahead. Continue.
There's not much else I could add. I'm not a fan of the Viking Raiders. You said you didn't know if they look cheap. I think they look cheap. I don't know how much of that is them, how much of that is costuming.
No, it's costume. They don't look like Greek gods, neither one of them. So you don't gimmick up plain but rough-looking guys with funny or goofy outfits, because then it just accentuates that they look like some schlub that you've walked in off the street and painted their face or told them to wear funny shit. I would assume that these guys are fairly tough to handle in a legitimate conflict, so make them look like two big fucking burly guys that you don't want to fuck with in some fashion or other, and treat it seriously, and you can get something out of the big one especially. But
so it doesn't sound like you're enjoying this pay-per-view event so far.
Oh. Well, you remember I said Kofi Kingston. We were talking about who we'd pick and who we'd keep on the WWE roster, and finally we went back and forth on New Day because, God, the gimmick is just so insufferable. The unicorns and the colors and the pancakes and the cereal and the bootios and whatever the fuck, and just, I mentioned if I saw more of Kofi Kingston just get a chance to have a match, maybe I could decide, right? And then we went back and forth on, well, do we take all the New Day if we don't have to keep their gimmicks or whatever? But in this case, this kid did exactly what he was supposed to do here, but you couldn't really tell anything because Bobby Lashley just fucking goozled him for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it was. For the most part, that's obviously what they had laid out to do. Did anybody believe that Kofi Kingston was going to beat Bobby Lashley anyway? Bobby Lashley has beaten everybody convincingly, and I thought this should have been a Raw match instead of a pay-per-view match. with all due respect, do you remember all the pay-per-views in the old days where Steve Austin defended the title against Val Venus? No, you don't.
No, but I don't think that's a fair comparison. Because I don't think those fans see Kofi in that way. Remember, before the pandemic, they put the belt on Kofi because of the reaction of the fans.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that.
So,
but then they didn't separate Kofi from the unicorns and the Cheerios and the hula hoops and the pancakes, and he still looks silly.
Well, again, you said we went back and forth. We didn't go back and forth. I told you, I think the only one I actually spoke out about was Big E, but it goes for all of them. If I was picking my roster, I wouldn't take any of the 3 members of the New Day, not because they're not talented people, but because they've done so much goofy, silly shit for so long. I just would want my presentation being different, so I wouldn't have them.
Back and forth. I didn't mean we each went back and forth on our... I said we were going back and forth on what to do, blah, blah, blah. Don't accuse me of trying to make you seem wishy-washy.
I won't take the New Day, no.
Well, fuck you, then I'll take them. How's all right, anyway, I don't take this, though. Here's the thing. Kingston, he's obviously a good athlete. Without the whole gimmick and everything, he'd be easier to take. Nobody thought he was going to win this. I did notice also, at least they've dropped the big-ass stage and they come out on floor level in front of the big screen. That's not as obtrusive as that giant stage. I remember back when pay-per-view started, the idea of putting a stage or an entranceway that big in the building would have been laughed at, because the first thing you would have said was, how many seats is that going to cut off? Right? And so that's why they didn't do it, because who's going to give up that many seats? Then the era came in where they started making the bigger stages and the bigger entranceways because they didn't need to worry about giving away the seats, because they're giving up that many seats because they weren't going to sell them anyway. And now that they're back to where they can sell them for the big shows, maybe they're smartening up and cutting the size of the thing down. But this was, like I said, this was a Raw match, because was this a pay-per-view world title match? Lashley should manhandle Kofi Kingston like this in the logic of the universe here, with all the other people that he's beaten. He should manhandle Kingston like this, but should this be a pay-per-view title match? If he's against Brock or Drew or Reigns, he's strong. But holy mackerel. Anyway, just boom, boom, boom. Beat him up, beat him, hurt locked him. Your thoughts?
I thought it was what it should have been, like you said. Bobby Lashley, he is right now the best he's ever been. Him and MVP are great together.
Yeah.
I wish they hadn't broken up their Hurt business. But they have a great look. His promos are okay. His matches are good. And he needed to have a match like this against someone like Kofi. With that said, should it have been on Raw? If you look at what happened here, we'll talk more about it later, it's more like this set up Raw, if you really think about it. And I just don't think title matches... Look, they have all these championships. Do the title matches really mean something? This is in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just that, well, you know what? You made a good point here just now. This more like set up Raw, which is very possibly what they're going for, but the logic is normally, back when people kind of sort of knew what they were doing because you had to depend on the ticket sales or the pay-per-view sales for money, whereas now you can just do anything and it's the same amount of money regardless. You would take the opportunity when you had the biggest audience, the most people watching, which would be Raw on free cable television, if that's not a non sequitur, but you know what I'm saying. You would take that audience and you would have Lashley beat the shit out of a Kofi Kingston like this and beat him convincingly to promote his match coming up on the pay-per-view against a guy like a Brock Lesnar or Drew McIntyre or Roman Reigns or somebody that the people know it ain't going to be that easy for him to beat up that guy, because then you're making him look strong. Kofi Kingston's sacrifice here was had the most impact, because if you're going to have one of your guys get the shit kicked out of him and fucking beat with no comeback, you get your comeback to the dressing room. Ernie Ladd, waltz him across Texas. Make him sail like he's going to the electric chair. Give him his comeback to the locker room. That's what he did. So why not, if you're going to do that anyway, have everybody see it and build up the pay-per-view? And then everybody wants to buy the pay-per-view or see the big event or whatever the fuck. They're doing it backwards. And it's a lot of modern wrestling. They shoot angles on a pay-per-view or a big show with the smallest audience to come back to free television with the biggest audience. That's like, I don't know what that's like, because it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
All right.
But I think that's what this was. I mean, I think this, we'll talk about Raw, but I think this was just another step to get to Raw, which is another step to get to SummerSlam.
And maybe, you know, I mean, it would seem like they could promote these big shows and build these big shows up, even though they're not making any more or less money on them than anything else that goes on in the course of the week anymore. But you would think they could make them seem big without just making one big show be the lead to another big show. You can do both. Every show should lead to the next show. But it shouldn't be like every time you think she's promised me one of these days she's going to tickle my taint at the same time, and she never does. Anyway. Well, there's a wonderful segue to the Raw Women's Championship match.
Oh, my God.
All righty, a palate cleanser. Thank you, wrestling gods. Charlotte and Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship. And from the first lockup, this was better work than most men's matches over on TNT and the Lollipop Guild. I'm not going to belabor the point again, but it's true. They both look like stars. They both carry themselves and act like stars. They both act like they're serious. They both act like they have a goddamn grudge against each other, like there's some animosity between them. They fucking carry that off by exhibiting having a struggle and a contest and trying to one-up each other rather than doing goddamn a fucking Western swing dancing routine in the middle of the ring. And I don't know what anybody doesn't see about the difference in what they're doing and what Penelope Ford and fucking, Rico Rikamoku are doing over on the other channel, or a lot of people in this company are doing, including Alexa Bliss swinging on her little swing set, and the superhero girl that, hey, Shane Helms is calling. He wants the Hurricane back, or whatever the fuck, or the Rosie ripoff. Whether they're abbreviations. Almost a superhero, Ash, dangerously close to ass, or remember Superhero in Training? One of the poor Samoan fellas.
That's right,
Mr. Shit. These are female athletes that perform at a high level, that obviously train, that obviously take it seriously, that look like stars as well, and are not making a fucking joke or a Saturday Night Live sketch out of the business. And Rhea Ripley was the star of this. And that's what scares me about her. She's this good now, and she's already outshining Charlotte, who has had a ton more experience. And that's not to put the fucking boots to Charlotte. She was excellent here as well. But I thought Rhea Ripley kept the attention on her and just had more oomph in this one. She took it to Charlotte. These girls, they do big moves, but they put them in the right places where there's time to sell them and not to just squander them and throw them away and jump to the next thing. Ripley misses a cannonball off the apron of the floor, but she's not right back at like the smaller Darby Allin that is both shorter and lighter than Rhea Ripley. The other day on the other channel took the razor's edge on the steel stairs, and 10 seconds later he was back on offense. These girls know how to work. There's in their matches, there's a clear babyface and heel, even though the bookers or the writers, I should say, try to fuck with that and try to confuse people with some of the things they make these girls do, but there's a clear babyface and heel. The people like Rhea, and they want to see Charlotte taken down a peg because she acts like her dad when her dad was the dirtiest player in the game. But these girls take pride in their shit, and they work their gimmicks with the right attitudes. I will say it again, the ultimate compliment, the best thing you could ever say to a female wrestler in the days of the territory was, you work like a guy. Well, these two work like guys. That's the best compliment I can give them. Charlotte went for the moonsault. Ripley blocked it, tried the electric chair. Charlotte did the sunset flip. Rhea rolled through, snatched her, picked her up, and vertical suplexed her out of that position. Did you see that? That was even more impressive than a gotch lift.
It's very impressive.
And I didn't think she's going to get her there for a second, but she fucking committed to it, and she did it. Ripley tried the Harley Race bump over the turnbuckle. She didn't turn quite far enough and got stuck, but then turned around the other way and saved it by taking a fucked up bump over the top rope. So she even pretty much instantly was able to turn a fuck up into, well, that was what was supposed to happen. Charlotte did that big moonsault body block off the top, the one that Adam Page does in every single match. This one, Charlotte, she does it and nails it. It scares me to fucking death. I don't know how in the world that any of them do that, but she gets a big pop out of it. And then once again, Ripley sold. Then, Ripley got the cloverleaf, but Charlotte rolled through, and here a second later, Charlotte reversed the riptide into a DDT, 2 count, big pop. They had the people. And it was the big back and forth. Ripley goes for the superplex off the top. Charlotte foils it and hits the flipping thing. What a natural selection. I don't know if they're not getting too fucking exotic with the names on some of these things. Unless she was Darwin's kid, maybe then. But but nevertheless, a big false finish. The people are chanting, "This is awesome." And then I loved the finish. Charlotte goes for the figure 8, the figure 4 with the bridge. Rhea tosses her back in like a German suplex waistlock grip, but her head hits the buckle. She rolls out on the floor to sell it. Rhea leans out, is going to grab her, and she ran Rhea's head into the fucking post. You could hear it. It looked good. Rhea Ripley sells shit great, especially when she's been knocked loopy.
She's the best at selling. I think that may be the best thing she does, actually.
Yeah, the body language when she drops or when she, her head gets cocked or whatever. But anyway, boom, head into the fucking post. And then as she falls back and is laying there, Charlotte sticks her leg in between, or Rhea's leg in between the ring post and the metal stairs and kicks the stairs into the leg. And I heard somebody say, well, that should be a disqualification. Actually, no. Think about this. She didn't use a foreign object. She used the ring area as it sat there. It's the same thing as, do you get disqualified when you put a guy's head on the ropes and then kick the middle rope, boom, and it snaps his head? No, you don't. You should if his crotch is over the rope and you kick the rope, because that's a nut shot. That should be a disqualification. But this wasn't. This was her using the ring area to her advantage, at least a judgment call, not an automatic DQ. A head into the post used to be an automatic DQ, just like being thrown over the top rope. But then all the modern fans said, oh, well, that makes everything boring. Now they wanted this to be a DQ. You can't have it both ways, folks. So anyway, she kicks the fucking leg steps into the leg, and then gets in the ring, puts on the figure 8, and Rhea has to tap. This was a great finish, and Charlotte had great facials afterwards. Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley are the Flair and Steamboat of the women, in my opinion. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think you're right in terms of what they could do in the ring. I think you're wrong in terms of how they're presented and how their feud is presented, because it isn't something you look at and say, oh, this is a great trilogy of matches or all just a great long-term feud, because there are stupid bumps in the road.
The booking is letting them down.
Yeah,
but
the
what they
booking's
can
letting
do in
them
the
down.
ring.
I understand some fans were upset that Rhea already lost the belt and that Charlotte got the belt again. I'd prefer Rhea didn't lose the belt because she just won it. However, if there's one person she's going to lose it to, I'm okay with it being Charlotte because Charlotte is really good.
Well, bingo, and that's the same thing that I thought, and I thought, okay, boom, she just beat Charlotte, now Charlotte's beat her, now we've got a rubber match coming up. Until you made me watch the clips from Raw, we'll talk about that later.
Well, Jim, I have to say, you sound tired. Are you getting enough sleep?
Oh, I tell you, I sleep like a baby. Wake up every hour crying and piss the bed. But I'll tell you what I found out, Brian? I've mentioned that I'm getting a lot better sleep since I'm not on the road and forcing myself to binge eat and binge sleep and then deprive myself of sleep and everything. But it is a problem when it comes to recovery, performance, immunity, which is important, and feeling less stressed. Even if you don't have to watch modern wrestling, sleep is everything. And I have now found the answer in the documents that I've received here from our new friends at Beam. That's BEAM. I found the answer to better sleep in a delicious, healthy cup of cocoa. Folks, it's the Dream CBD powder from Beam, and it's changing the way that everyone sleeps. With Dream powder, you're getting more than just quality shut-eye. You're providing your body with sleepy vitamins and minerals like magnesium, reishi, I-theanine. I don't know how to pronounce that. And nano CBD. It's theanine, but it helps you sleep. Dream is essentially a guilt-free, sleep-inducing, warm cup of organic cacao. Organic cacao. That's how it's CACAO. So, yes. And a warm cup, I'll start this over. It's essentially a guilt-free, sleep-inducing warm cup of organic cacao and organic cinnamon without any calories or added sugar. That's the important part. And there's proof in the powder, folks. After taking Dream, 99% of people feel an improvement in the quality of their sleep, and 97% felt more energized the next day. 1% never woke up to comment. If you want better sleep, folks, no, I'm just kidding about that part. Of course, that's not serious. And the folks at Beam have no worry about me saying that again. If you want...
It's a fine product if you want to sleep.
It's good. It's good.
It's got cacao.
It's good stuff. If you want better sleep and better days delivered every month, subscribe to Dream for awesome perks like free delivery and 35% off your first month. Plus, you can pause or cancel at any time. Subscribe today and you'll save 35% by going to beamtlc.com. That's Beam, BEAM, TLC.com/JCE. BeamTLC.com/JCE. 35% off your first month. Free delivery. All kinds of stuff. Just go to BeamTLC.com and use that code JCE at checkout. Sweet dreams, everybody.
I understand Tommy Rich used to drink the Beam to go to sleep, didn't he?
Or Tommy Dreamer used to drink. The American Dream. Where's the Dream Machine when we need him?
For the Dream Powder.
For the Dream Powder. Dream used to take Dream pills, not Dream Powder. But if he'd have had Dream Powder, who knows how much longer he could have gone on. I am that man to walk that barbed wire fence 32,000 miles barefooted, eat steel wool like cake, sop lightning with bread, picked up Plymouth Rock, caught 9 pounds of buckshot in my bare hands. Well, and I don't know. We need to get back to this pay-per-view, and we are not sponsored by Applebee's, but apparently this pay-per-view certainly was. We may not be sponsored by Beam anymore, but apparently this pay-per-view was sponsored by Applebee's because we got several commercials with some of the guys and girls sitting around acting like they're getting together at Applebee's all dressed in gimmick. and giving the wait staff a very bad time.
I understand some of the beam aficionados call WWE the all-natural beam.
Cacao!
Because it puts you right to sleep.
It puts you right to sleep, yeah. Well, beam is all natural, too.
That's
so
true.
This is just unnecessary beam for the WWE. And then, shut up about the cacao! And then there was Riddle and Shinsuke Nakamura and the newest idiot with a guitar. Not Elias, but the guy that makes Elias look like Lou Thez. This over-the-top, screaming, honking, howling individual were in the back, and they acted stupid and did some bad comedy. And then we got another match. And this one was the match that you said you had all the problems with, or the most difficulties with.
No, this was, I think, the only match I had problems with, because what happened was all of a sudden the feed started just flickering, and you would get black, and then every 3 seconds you'd get an image, and then it would flicker to another image and go back to black. It was unbearable. Obviously, no one could watch in that way. It was easy to watch a scrambled image on pay-per-view years ago. And I thought it was just me, and it turned out it was everyone on Peacock. And I didn't get to see any of that match until I saw Big E celebrate. That's it.
Well, you didn't miss much. And by the way, we forgot to mention in Charlotte and Rhea's match, the people were apparently getting on Charlotte, and she flipped them off, gave them the finger, and they blacked the script. They went to black.
Yeah.
They didn't even go to a crowd shot. They just went to fucking black for a finger. Is that their new standard? How are they going to show anything Steve Austin ever did?
We'll see if they do. And one of the things the fans were chanting in that match was, "We want Becky," because everyone's been led to believe that Becky Lynch is imminently going to return. So now they expect her at any time to just pop up.
Well, and that's not a bad thing. They want her. Sooner or later, they're going to get her. But then that's why Charlotte was flipping the people off. Well, I'm here now, but going to black on a finger instead of. That's actually used to be the worst thing that you could do in television, was go to black for any fucking reason, except when you were supposed to go to black.
That tells you it was Peacock and it wasn't the truck, because the truck would have just shot a fan or something.
One would think, but they didn't even miss all of it anyway. I mean, there's a 7-second audio delay if somebody slips and says,
Except AEW, remember
fornicate.
They were bleeping everyone right before the curse word because they couldn't get it right, so it'd be like,
well, yeah.
I want to shit.
That's when you have people that don't know how to work a 7-second delay. You get that. Anyway, the 8-man, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-man ladder Money in the Bank match involving Kevin Owens, Riddle, does he have he has a first name again?
I don't know. I know that lawsuit against him was just dropped. So I think they may add his first name back, but we'll see.
I try to fast forward anything he's involved in at this point because he's just gotten into just completely, stupid silly. Shinsuke Nakamura, Ricochet, John Morrison, Big E, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre. Random observations as I was skipping through the entrances trying to get to the meat of this matter. Riddle does not have birds fly out of his ass anymore when he's introduced. I guess that was too tough to do in front of people. They were actually going to have to get legitimate pigeons and shove them up his fucking sphincter and have them fly out. They couldn't computer generate it now that the fans are back. This Boogs fellow came out with the guitar in front of a microphone and screamed and howled and screamed some more and played horrible guitar music for Shinsuke Nakamura, who came down the aisle acting like he was having convulsions or seizures or possibly a series of strokes, or he was being raised from the dead by the ancient curse of Imhotep. I don't know what the fuck. Miz came out with Morrison, but Miz is in a wheelchair. He came out to the stage or the top of the ramp with him or whatever. Not the ramp, but the aisleway now. You've got 5 or 6. I would say I've said 5 guys in here that everybody knows has not one snowball's chance in a hot oven of winning this thing. Owens is an iffy one. So I really put it at this had to be either Seth or McIntyre just on the way that people have been presented. But what the fuck? Again, an 8-man ladder match for no purpose. The baby faces fight the baby faces. The heels fight the heels. Guys do moves to each other in random succession when 6 of the 8 guys in the match randomly disappear so that the other 2 can have the stage. And then they exchange themselves in and out and add multiple ladders. I got to be honest with you. I started reading Rock Rims's biography of Roy Shire and zoned out on a lot of this. I would look up every once in a while. Drew McIntyre hit a dive over the top on 6 guys. Thankfully, everybody somehow accidentally ends up all in the same place whenever a big guy jumps over the top rope. And then when he did the dive, then 3 guys hit the fucking ring, not in the match. 3 guys not in the match, or as best as I could tell, not affiliated with anybody in this match, hit the ring, beat up Drew McIntyre, hit him with several chair shots, and drag him out of the arena, all in full view of the fans, the referee, and everybody else. But it's no DQ. Lazy booking. Who were those people? I heard the announcers saying names, but I did not catch the names, recognize the names, understand the names.
I didn't see any of this.
Oh, I forgot. You didn't see it. Well, I tried to fast forward some to get out of that fucking mess because now I'm just disgusted with this whole thing. But before I could grab the remote, Ricochet jumped in. As soon as these 3 individuals attack, pummel, and kidnap Drew McIntyre, and the match is continuing to go on, Ricochet immediately follows it up with some great acrobatics, and hopefully Ringling Brothers or Cirque du Bolshoi or some fine organization will hire him and get him out of the fucking wrestling ring.
Ringling Brothers is closed.
Well, did he work for them too?
No, no, he did not.
Imagine that. Well, anyway, they did some acrobatics. Then they had more ladders. And I couldn't take it anymore, so I fast-forwarded some more. And then I stopped because I saw something. I said, well, I better back up here. Someone may have died. Seth Rollins power-bombed Kevin Owens over the top rope onto a metal ladder that was bridging the ring apron and the announce desk. And the ladder snapped directly in half, and Owens landed on the back of his fucking head. And I'm not laughing to say I hope he was hurt. I'm laughing to say, why the fuck would you give someone that move, and why the fuck would that person take it? But that's been Owens or Steen ever since I've known him. You couldn't fucking talk him out of this shit. So he not only lost this match, but he was powerbombed over the top rope, threw a metal ladder to the floor on the back of his head, could have broke his fucking neck easily. And that's when I said, fuck this whole thing. And guess who won? Big E! Big E! One of the people I considered one of the fucking job guys that wouldn't have a chance to win this, but I forgot that none of this shit has to make any sense, and they're not just giving top people shots at their top titles.
To those fans, to the fans who like the moron WWE type stuff, he's a big star to them.
Well,
that's the thing. Now, I think there are some other big stars when you see them on these shows, it becomes quite apparent who's a big star and who really isn't in the general scheme of things. But in the world of stupidity that is WWE, he's a big star.
Well, he won. So we got that going for us. And then the one we've all been waiting for, the last match. No, the main event, again for one of the world championships, one of the numerous world titles that they have here. This one from Smackdown. Roman Reigns with his cohort, his consort, whatever he is, Paul Heyman, against Edge. And I'm thinking, okay, I have sat through this show, and the only good match the only acceptable match, the only thing that's made any sense was Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, but I got faith in these two old pros that this is going to be a world title match that deserves to be on pay-per-view, that deserves to be on the big show, hearkening back to the old days when the thing actually meant something, right? This is what I'm thinking. I was wrong in that assumption. I will say Edge looks more like a Viking than the Raiders do.
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to tell me you really like this match.
No, well, I'll tell you, I really like the people in it, and I really didn't like the match, and I'm about to tell you why. I liked part of the match. It's another one of those schizophrenic things. I understood why they started off slow at the beginning, because after the chaos and bumper car match they had in the previous match, you should slow down. It's a world title. They're taking their time, the face-off, getting the chants going, dueling chants, let's go Roman, let's go Edge. These guys look like main eventers. They act like main eventers. They started slow again, traded pie faces rather, and then Edge rode him a little bit and slapped his head around. Reigns tackles Edge down to the floor, gives him the big shoulder tackle and says, "Who's the bitch now?" And of course, Michael Cole says, he's saying, "Who's the boss now?" But anyway, they start going back and forth, and they start picking up the pace. The first big bump of the match was Roman Reigns giving Edge a Samoan drop on the floor, and he did it safely, but still, the guy's had bad neck, but nevertheless. Edge beats the count. He's in at the 9 count. And Reigns gets heat on him. But there was no urgency in the heat early in the match, just an ass kicking and kind of a slow paced one. And now I'm realizing, wait a minute. As it turned out, this thing went well over half an hour. I mean, if you added entrances and afterbirth, you're talking close to an hour, but it definitely, the match bell to bell was a good 30 minutes. I won't say a good 30. I'll say at easily it was 30 minutes. I timed one of the chin locks with a calendar. I understand starting slow after a quick-paced match and then get to people into it and then pick it up from there, but they were paced themselves because for whatever reason, and they went plenty past the 3-hour window, and that used to be a no-no because then you got to pay for a whole full hour of satellite time even if you only use 10 minutes of it. But apparently they got more money than the fucking federal government. They don't care anymore. But all their work looked good. Selling, logic, move timing, just the pace they were going for fucking ever. Finally, Edge started making a pretty good comeback. He started with a single flapjack. We've talked about that one, but it looked for all the world like Roman Reigns boosted himself up and went, "Ha!" Just one person should not be able to elevate a guy like that. Anyway, nevertheless. Edge went for a spear. Reigns caught him in a front face lock. Edge drove him through the floor, or through the ropes to the floor. They took a nice bump. And then Reigns misses the spear, goes into the barricade, and breaks the barricade down. And the people cheered for a second, popped more or less. But do you remember when that would have torn the complete fucking house down and people would have gone rabid and your chair would have squeaked? And you remember when all those things would have happened?
Yes, some of them still do, yes.
Yes, some of them still do, but not to people going absolutely berserk, because you've seen this. How many times have we seen people go through the fucking barricade in the last year alone? So then we fixed it. Because now that they went through that barricade, Edge turns around and spears Roman Reigns through another barricade. So that topped it. And then he carries Reigns to the ring, which he should have, 2 count. Then here's what killed the fucking thing for me. Besides, I could have taken it being that long. I could have taken the pace because everything was good and these guys are pros, but here's what killed the whole thing for me. Reigns goes for the Superman punch on Edge. Edge is supposed to wipe out Charles Robinson, the referee. And it looked like Charles was trying to line himself up where he would get kind of shouldered and go through the ropes, but instead, when Edge went down some kind of way, it looked like on the camera angle that they had, and this is what the announcers called, Edge kind of clipped his leg, Charles's leg, and Charles goes down and starts selling his knee and goes with that. But he's in the ring. just turned over selling his knee, looking away from the action. I have torn both of my ACLs in a wrestling ring. And I assure you, it's a painful fucking injury, but I still had the capability to turn and look around. I didn't have to just turn my back and sell in one direction. Also, at this point, I'll tell you what happened first, and then I'll tell you what I've learned about wrestling over the years. Roman Reigns goes to the floor. The referee is down. Goes to the floor, but not hurrying. He goes out. He looks around. Oh, he sees what he wants. He wants a chair. He picks up the chair, but he doesn't bring the chair in. He puts his foot on the thing. What do they call them? The spokes or the struts or the chair support or whatever. He breaks off one of those. So he's got like a metal bar in his hand. And he takes forever to get back in the ring, and he's taking his time. When you think about it this way, he's a criminal about to commit a crime behind the back of the police. But he's not hurrying. That means he knows that guy, that referee, is either not going to turn over and look, or he's not supposed to. And so I think by now, Charles has rolled out on the floor on the other side where he can be at least a little farther away from the action and can't look at it. But Reigns gets back in with this thing. He threatens Edge. He threatens the fans. He takes his time, and then he tries to do a crossface where he's going to have the metal piece hooked up in Edge's mouth like he's done to people before, but Edge fights out of it. No shit, he fought out of it. He's been selling the one punch for, and I clocked this, 2 solid minutes. So, of course, by the time Roman Reigns got back to him with the thing, he can't put it on him. Then Edge gets out of it and gets the crossface on Reigns with the chair spoke. But out come the Usos down the aisleway to stop him, but then the Mysterios come and stop him. They are fighting in the last place that we saw the fucking referee, who apparently is now rolled away further and is in a coma and not seeing any of this. And also, we've now established that he's the only referee in the building because no one else has come out, and it's been 4 minutes. Nobody in the back is watching the monitor. Nobody knows that the referee is down. Then Seth Rollins comes in. When Edge, finally, the Mysterios have taken the Usos, and they have, you know what they've done, Brian? They've fought off. Just fight off. So they just fought off. Edge gets a fucking crossface on Reigns. Seth Rollins comes in, super kicks Edge in the back of the fucking head and walks out. The referee has now been down for well over 4 minutes. The Roman Reigns, now takes the opportunity to get up and go for the Superman punch. But Edge spears him. And there's a big pop. And he covers Roman Reigns. And guess what happens now? 5 minutes after the first referee got knocked down, but as exactly at the moment in time when it should be called for, wouldn't you know who won the pony? Here comes the second referee. God damn it. And he counts a 2 count. Fucking hell. So now Seth comes back, and he gets up on the apron, and Edge kicks him off the apron. And Roman Reigns just spears him. 1, 2, 3. Boom. And that's over. That's what, when a referee gets bumped, and this is why that everybody groans now when it happens, and this is why the Booker of the Year over on the other channel says, but we don't bump the referees. That's right, because they have no power and they're completely meaningless, but at least you don't bump them, except when you bump them. But the reason why everybody groans is because of the way that the referee is bumped, and this is the classic example. A shitty-looking bump, and he had to stay down for 5 minutes. He didn't have to stay down for 5 minutes. He could have got up and seen the whole thing. So the booker, whoever called this finish, whoever laid it out, they buried the referee. Bill Watts would have fined the people involved or fired his booker if this had been him. This would have got a booker fired years ago. because people would have seen through this. Of course, now they're not looking to see through anything. They've already seen through it, but still, it's fucking stupid. Once that the referee is bumped, and there's all kinds of different ways to do it, and it's believable that a referee can get tied up in wild action. It happens. But it needs to come out of nowhere. You need not to be a perfect referee bump. You don't see it coming, but when it happens, you go, oh my God, because it looks good, and it looks like he couldn't get out of the way, and it looks like something uncalled for happened. That's a good referee bump. Once you do that, then your clock is ticking. And I used to fucking sit down with guys that were going through their finishes that they had come up with, running them by us. And they, okay, bumped around. Okay, how are you going to do it? Okay, fine. What are you doing now? We're boom, 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 boom. And when they'd get finished, I'd say, well, there's a problem with that. What's that? Where's your referee? Well, we bumped him. How long ago did you bump him? Oh, is it 15, 20 seconds? No, what you just told me that you were going to do, it's going to take at least 75 seconds. Therefore, shorten it, because now you've fucking put the heat on the referee, and you've taken the people out of the match, and you've made it fucking bullshit because the referee's having to fucking lay there forever. Why wouldn't another one come out? If a referee is down for more than a short period of time, some other referee is going to have to come out because people are keeping an eye on this in the back. So if it's going to be the original referee, you have to, as I said before, act like you're committing a crime and do it while the cop's back is turned. If you're going to bring another referee out, then your clock is still ticking. Because when that referee has gone down, if it was a shoot, what would somebody say in the back? Oh, shit, Barney's down. Get another referee. Is there a referee standing by while this fucking falderall is going on around in the back? That's when the criminal is committing his fucking crime. So as soon as the fucking cheating or whatever move is being done or whatever thing is being done that can't be seen by a referee, as soon as that's over with, that second referee has to be running down there because it wouldn't take long for somebody in the back. 20 seconds, would it be? Hey, get Joe, Barney's down. What? Joe's zipping his pants up. He was just jacking off. Well, tell him to finish. God, boom, boom, boom. Okay, get the fuck out there. That's what's supposed to be going on in people's minds in the arena while the referee's down and the heel's trying to fucking cheat real quick. When your referee is down, and now they've got the fans back. I know they can shoot television around the referee laying there for 4 minutes, but what are those 15,000 people in Dickey's Arena supposed to think when they see him laying there? Maybe they sent somebody down to check on him. Well, goddamn, if he's hurt bad enough that he can't get to his feet within 5 minutes, maybe we should have seen a fucking ambulance or a stretcher. And more importantly, if they'd have sent anybody to check on him and they'd seen he's hurt that bad, they'd be waving another referee down. You can't just stop time to do the emoting in the ring that some fucking writer has figured out, or somebody in the new wrestling business that gets too cute for their own good and has to put all these twists and turns in. It's bullshit. So they cheated these guys, they're main event guys, but this was a garbage finish. And when Roman Reigns hit that spear, I wrote, thank God this is over. But it wasn't. Because Seth and Roman Reigns then had a face-off. Or are they going to get into it? But Edge was back up and tackled Seth, and guess what they did, Brian? You'll never believe what Seth Rollins and good old fucking Edge did then. They fought off.
They fought off.
So now Roman Reigns can get the microphone and start cutting a promo, and then Cena music. The crowd went mental. The crowd went apeshit. Looked like the Monday Night Wars 20 years ago. A star has returned. Glory, hallelujah. He hit the ring. He outshone the rest of the entire show by hitting the ropes and tossing his hat to the people and telling Roman Reigns he couldn't see him. And it was just like the old days when people were actually fucking over. Imagine that. So at least it made him forget the finish of that fucking match. Now argue with me and tell me what I just said isn't the why did you think I was going to like that finish?
I don't know about the finish. I thought maybe you'd like the match, but I agree with you about the pacing. It's an issue I think that's been around for a while with some of the main event matches and maybe even some of Roman's matches. But I like the match by and large, except for Seth Rollins running in. I'm not really interested in Seth Rollins versus Edge, but everyone has to do something. But that Cena pop and Roman Reigns and Heyman's faces in the ring when Cena came out, that's something. And when you see something like that and you hear that pop, you know, it sounds weird saying this. It's not like I'm the biggest John Cena fan. But sometimes you forget what a big star is.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and then they arrive. I think Roman Reigns looks like a big star. I think Lashley looks like a big star. There aren't a lot of guys on this roster that do, but Cena's at another level.
Well, that's the problem is Lashley looks like a big star, and everybody you mentioned everybody you mentioned looks like a big star, but they haven't been booked like big stars. John Cena's a big star because that people remember him from when there were a bunch of big stars and you could tell who they were. He's the last one left. But SummerSlam will be just off the chain, as the kids say.
So let me ask you this. We're talking about the return of John Cena here. Cena's back. We'll talk about his appearance on Raw shortly. But we are, what, a month and a half? Well, not a month and a half, but a month, give or take, away from SummerSlam. If Cena's not going to be around past SummerSlam, is it worth doing all this for SummerSlam so close to it? And do they try to get Cena back in the mix for big events now going forward?
I would hope so. They should certainly try to get Cena as much as possible. Who knows with his schedule or what he's doing, how much, he can be there, but he better be there. At this point, he's worth being a loss leader. He's worth them paying him money that they can't just recoup at the gate or in whatever manner that they're recouping it on big shows these days. They need to spend some money to get him in there to re-energize their TV ratings, their whole product, their whole fucking deal. Just the people seeing him back and him being so over and them being so electric for him that they can advertise him on Raw, they can advertise him on SmackDown, they can fucking do whatever the fuck to get people back into this malaise-ridden universe they've got here where it's just bleh. And let's see what John can do. Because,
And they've got him on every show so far because he was on Raw. They already announced he's going to be on SmackDown. They're certainly trying to get as much as they can out of him.
Well, yes, if I was fucking Stephanie and Triple H, I'd ask him to be in my fucking home movies with my kids. I'd do whatever I could. He's the last star they've got available to him at that level. Because Brock is a huge star and a huge gate attraction, but he doesn't just send people into goddamn epileptic fits by the sight of him, coming back like that. He's a different kind of over. So they need John because he's going to bring a bunch of attention, a bunch of eyeballs, and some energy to this thing. That's the main thing is some energy and some excitement. And they're excited about John Cena. So there you go.
Got to do something about the hair, though.
Well, I wish Keeps was a sponsor on today's program, but you know what? Hey, here's the thing. He's a little older now, but he's still over. And same thing I've said about Stone Cold Steve Austin's mud hole stomps in the corner. The people couldn't see through him because they couldn't see through Steve Austin. They're not going to see John Cena being bald because it's John fucking Cena. They had one shot of a 10 or 12-year-old kid that just lost his fucking mind when Cena came out. What was he when he wasn't even born when John got over, and he probably wasn't old enough to not be pissing in his pants the last time John was a regular, but he's a fucking movie star.
If you have Cena semi-regularly through WrestleMania, let's say, do you put the belt on him, or does he even need the belt?
No, he doesn't need the belt. And then, here's the thing. If he was to beat Roman Reigns and then carry it for 3 months and then drop it back, all the people would remember is that John Cena beat Roman Reigns. I'm not saying that Reigns needs to win SummerSlam. They can do some kabuki-ish shit and get a rematch out of it. But I would hope to God that John Cena does not at any point in time beat Roman Reigns, because that would be backing up. Unless John decided to say, fuck Hollywood, I'm back for 2 years. Then go ahead and beat Roman Reigns.
Well, speaking of backing up, Jim, I sent you various clips from Monday Night Raw, which aired last night.
That was a great transition. Speaking of going backwards, go ahead.
I sent you clips from Monday Night Raw last night where I think one could deduce that maybe they were doing things wrong on the program.
Oh, you sent me some clips in no particular order. I watched Karrion Kross versus Jeff Hardy, the highlight clip. And seeing this, I had to search out what a couple of people said. I had a minute to search out what a couple of people said on the internet. And apparently, everybody is pretty universal in the thought that they've completely lost their fucking rabbit-ass minds. Karrion Kross debuts on Raw, and Jeff Hardy beats him with his feet on the ropes. The babyface cheats to beat the heel, the new star heel debuting versus the babyface that, let's be honest, they have not protected a lot lately and has probably seen his best run. I have a prediction to make, and I have a reason for this. I'm not saying it's a good reason, but I'm predicting I have a reason. Do you know what that reason is, Brian? Can you put on your Karnak the Magnificent cap and tell me what I'm going to say before I say it here now?
Can I guess what your prediction is and the reason for it?
Well, what my prediction is, the reason why this happened this way.
The reason why? Because someone...
That Jeff Hardy beat Karrion Kross.
Tell me. I'd like to hear it.
I guarantee if I'm lying, I'm flying, and my feet have not left the ground. You hide and watch. Vince, and I guarantee you this is a Vince idea. There was no Scarlett, right? Karrion Kross was by himself.
Well, that's another one of the things people are talking about, the idea that Vince saw him with Scarlett and didn't understand maybe why they were together.
No. I've got this. And I will be willing to admit that I was wrong if it don't happen this way, but I guarantee you that Vince has debuted Karrion Kross and he loses. And in some way, this will lead to him bringing in or revealing or adding Scarlett's going to show up. And when Scarlett shows up, he becomes a winner. I guarantee this is a Vince McMahon thing through and through. I can see it coming a mile away. It's not fucking very smart.
No, Randy Savage didn't come in and lose every week.
Well, I'm just telling you. This is, I can guarantee you that some way or another, Scarlett's going to come in and make a difference with old Karrion Kross. Elsewise, they've completely all lost their minds. But I can believe that Vince would say, let's start him out, and then he brings in Scarlett and blah, blah, blah. It's some screwy thing that Vince has convinced himself of.
Okay, you're predicting it.
I bet you. I'm predicting
it, and I think you have a pretty sound reason for it. Now, we can all agree that this was the stupidest way to bring him in and use him for his debut on Raw, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, we're agreeing with that. I'm explaining where I think the reasoning may be coming from. I'm not saying that it was very good. But I bet you they're going to bring Scarlett in later, and somehow she's going to arrive and have an impact on this guy in a positive fashion, whereas he couldn't get his shit together before.
This is WWE. You know what? What you just said makes sense.
Yep.
It's going to be embrace your Tourette syndrome and let the people know what you've been inflicted with, and that'll cause them to like you.
Piss
and then no one likes
ass.
you. Yeah.
Cocksucker, motherfucker, tits. Anyway, I saw that clip from Curb Your Enthusiasm, by the way.
What'd you think?
That was fabulous. Especially when the old lady started getting into the spirit of the thing. Anyway, then another clip I saw. Let's get this out of the way. Charlotte, she has a celebration. She cuts a promo. She's the new champion. She'd had a great line. The people start chanting, Becky, Becky again. She says, that's right, Becky's home breastfeeding, and I'm here defending my championship. Fucking great. Boom.
She's a star. She's great.
I would have loved to seen Charlotte with Tony Schiavone in the TBS studios in 1986. It would have been the same fucking thing. Here comes Rhea Ripley, challenges for the rematch. Charlotte declines like a heel. Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville come out and say, no, 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 you're going to have the rematch. And here's the thing. Besides the fact that, I guess they're not schnookering anybody anymore. Used to when you had a pay-per-view that everybody paid for, and then they'd rematch it on free TV the next night. It'd be what the fuck? And that's something that Vince had to be talked into also over the years. But now that nobody's really paying for the pay-per-views, oh, yeah, rematch it next night on TV, but they could have advertised this. I would have actually watched Raw if I'd have known I was going to see Charlotte and Rhea Ripley again. As it was, I see a minute and a half of highlights of the match. It looked good, but Charlotte got disqualified. However, that happened. And then Ripley jumps Charlotte and lays her out, and here comes Nikki Ass with her briefcase. And the
ASH.
Yeah, that's what I said, wasn't it? One of those things. ASH, ASS. Anyway, she goes to the top rope. She waits forever for Charlotte to get up. Why does the champion that's gotten laid out, why do you want to wait for the champion to get up to deliver your move to put her back down? You're cashing in the briefcase and picking the bones of a fucking opponent that's been already put in peril and jeopardy and danger and left helpless before you. Why do you need to go to the fucking top rope and wait for her to stand up? Kill the timing. Crossbody 1, 2, 3. Charlotte Flair is defeated. The new champion is Nikki Ass.
ASH.
Yeah. Now we've got, instead of one of these two Amazons that look like movie stars, we have a girl in a cheap superhero outfit that's an undercard comedy figure that just beat Charlotte for the women's championship. That's what I saw, at least.
So again, you come out of that pay-per-view, a good, hard-hitting, serious match. Charlotte wins the title. Okay, they're going to do something goofy on Raw. It's Raw, the champion celebration. It's like Jericho booked it.
Let's beat her with Lasertron now.
And then a Rhea Ripley rematch. What a nice surprise. I wish I was watching too. And then she loses to the girl who, I guess she doesn't think she's a superhero. She's trying. She's almost a superhero. What is this?
Just like Omos is almost a giant.
Well, no, he's a giant.
These people are almost there. Well, he's not a giant the way he's a giant in stature that works like a midget. Now, I've seen midgets that could outwork Almost.
Do you think he could say, I want the belt?
I bet you he can. I bet you he could say, I want the belt. That's the best.
With a German accent, he could say it, really.
Well, whatever, German or Argentinian or whatever accent. What El Gigante was from, where was he from? Venezuela, Argentina?
Argentina, I think.
Argentina, that's right. Argentina, Venezuela.
You had him sound like Bela Lugosi over here.
Yeah.
I want the belt.
And your blood. I want to suck your blood.
Call off the cocksucker.
Bermuda, Jamaica, come on, pretty. Anyway, that's, yeah. So also, John Cena was on Raw, where he did a master promo class. He not only no-sold the what, but brought him back, got him out of it, was glib, delivered the promo well. You couldn't tell it was written for him. It sounded like himself, as he usually does. He promoted his match, had a great go-home line. This was Chef's Kid, beautiful, 5 stars. And then they played Riddle's music, and out comes this fucking goof on his little putt-putt skateboard. Or what do they call those things? Not a skateboard. It's a little putt-putt scooter, a non-motorized scooter. I guess that would just be a scooter. I don't know what the fuck it is, but he comes out, gets in the ring, and they did comedy, and not funny comedy, just goofy comedy. Are they still laboring under the false apprehension or false impression that Riddle is going to be a goddamn star. They put, of all the people they could give a rub off of John Cena, this goof with his silliness and his bro. What the? So John Cena does a 5-star promo, and then somehow they figure out a way to bring him, a movie star and nationwide, worldwide celebrity, down to the standard level of everybody else that's been on this program. Why was that necessary?
That was so unnecessary. I can't even put it into words. I agree with you. Great promo. He had the crowd in the palm of his hands. And then it would have been great for him to just walk off. You want to see more? Go to Smackdown. You could see him confront Roman Reigns instead of bad comedy. Bad Vince McMahon comedy.
Dusty Rhodes comes out, announces he's back, and he's after Ric Flair. And then, oh, wait. Here comes the Italian Stallion. Let's do some comedy. All right. And finally, I watched, God damn it, the final piece of the puzzle of the Over the Hill Gang being reunited came about after Bobby Lashley had a match on Raw with Keith Lee. We just said, where's Keith Lee? We've talked, is it medical? Is it a trademark issue? Like you've heard somebody say, well, it can't be it because they can't trademark his real name forever. And we don't know why is Keith Lee off television for the last 5 or 6 months. They bring him back. They put him on Raw. They put him against Bobby Lashley, and they beat him. Boom. Not only a match where, by the way, I just saw the highlights, and that was enough because this was a style clash. Keith Lee and Bobby Lashley, it didn't work. And it would be completely insane to feed Keith Lee to Bobby Lashley unless they've completely given up on him. And right as I wrote those words, I saw Spear 1, 2, 3. So, whatever, it's not medical because he worked. And whatever that Keith Lee has done that they didn't want him to do or said that they didn't want him to say or reverse, not done what they wanted him to do or not said what they wanted him to say, they have given up on him and he is officially in the shit. Because this was obviously on purpose. If Vince McMahon gave a fuck about whether Keith Lee lived, died, or burst into flames, this would not have happened. So we still don't know the issue behind this, but Keith Lee, who all things considered from what we saw could be a star, but from his work and his physique and his promos, as we said, just had no oomph to him at all. But Vince has said, fuck it. I think this will either be mostly the last we see of Keith Lee, or depending on how bad Vince is wanting to fucking put it to this guy, we may see him putting everybody, including Howie the mailroom guy, over. But this would just, this is it. Keith Lee, thanks for coming. Whatever the fuck it is you've done or they think you've done, you're done. Your thoughts?
We've all wanted to see Keith Lee. The crowd gave him a nice pop when he came out. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Lashley and Keith Lee. I didn't expect this. I also didn't expect him to lose right away on TV for his big return. But I shouldn't have been surprised. So I carry and cross lose in his Raw debut. Seems like Vince just likes to take Paul's guys, well, but I mean, and bring them up and just crush them. In
the manner that this was done, Kofi Kingston took more of an ass kicking to put away than Keith Lee did. This is almost, to me, would be personal. If you said, who's Vince McMahon mad at? And you let me watch fucking 20 matches. When I watched this, I'd say it's Keith Lee's the one he's mad at.
And again, the return of Keith Lee and the squash of Keith Lee was just to set up something else.
Well, exactly, because then here comes, as Lashley is standing there, obviously dominant, here comes Oldberg. But you know what? He's still over. He's over Oldberg. This is the problem. We've said this before. At least John, people I don't even know how old John is now. He's got to be, early 40s? He's
Cena?
Yeah.
Oh, mid-40s, I would say.
Well, whatever. Because we had him here in 2000. It would have been 21 years ago. He's not mid-40s yet because he was still, 21, 22 then. Anyway,
44.
Point is, okay, all right. People don't see him as that old. He's from the next generation after Goldberg. I can see, but the thing is, Goldberg is still over, and he still looks good for his age, but he's a 55-year-old man, and if it was The Miz, I'd go, okay, yeah, this works. But it's Bobby Lashley. And so what do you do now? Are you just, I guess they've just admitted, fuck it. We have nobody that can draw any money for our big show, so it's all hands on deck for SummerSlam. We'll bring back Goldberg. He can't possibly beat Bobby Lashley, or they've screwed themselves because Lashley will be around, and he probably doesn't charge as much money per match as Goldberg does. It's not going to be a long match because who was the last person that Goldberg wrestled? We said, well, fuck, thanks for coming. It's like 2 minutes.
Was it Roman?
I can't possibly because it would have been a Paul Heyman big match, big move, get in and get out kind of thing.
Oh, Braun Strowman. Well, Strowman. Remember, they brought him in to wrestle Roman, and then Roman was off Mania, and then they put him with Braun Strowman.
That's right. Roman Strowman, Comerato, Solo, Go, Naomi, I don't know what the fuck. So you're stuck in a position. Your big stars that get people's attention and cause them to want to watch your show are all so old that they can't go or go very long or go without getting hurt. And you're at the risk of same thing as Sting is 62 years old, but at least he's beating up people the size of middle schoolers. Goldberg's 50 something, 4 or 5, and he's going to be in there with Bobby Lashley. They haven't got anybody over the last 20 years that's left that they can draw a fucking house with. And that's whose fault is that?
Do you read anything into who the potential AEW surprises could be based on, the fact that they didn't get Brock for SummerSlam?
Well, it ain't going to be. I'm inclined to think a lot of people were saying it's going to be Braun Strowman. And that.
No, I mean that. If those fans go crazy for that, that's like when ECW fans went nuts for Sid.
Well, yeah, I mean, they go nuts for a star when they come out, and then they'll knock them as soon as they, the next day. I don't know. I mean, the AEW surprise is so checkered because they've built up, it's going to change the face of wrestling. It turns out to be, fucking the Mod Squad, Mac and Jim Jeffers in a fucking pickup truck. Just the many times they've said this is going to be big, this is going to change everything. Oh, but it's only going to be the start of the change of everything. Oh, but it's only going to be, but you got to wait till you see what all is going to happen. I don't know. They could be, this time they could actually have a big surprise, or they could just be enamored of, Tony Khan thinks in his head that all of his shit's so good that he's surprised when he gives people substandard surprises and they don't shit themselves. So maybe he thinks it's big and it's not, or maybe it is big. We'll see what happens.
Well, perhaps if that surprise isn't big enough, some fans will be disappointed and they'll say, you know what? Enough of this crap. I'm going to sue.
And I'll tell you what, right after that, I'm going to say enough of this rotten same segue every time. You're going to have to come up with something new. However, if you do want to sue somebody, well, I'll tell you what, you don't call my sister Sue. You don't call Sioux City Sue. You call the man for whom you can get even with Steven.
Call Steven P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Still to the rest.
You hear that, Brian?
What are you
You hear
doing
what that
over there?
sound is?
What is it? What are you ripping?
I'm tearing up my notes on that pay-per-view, and I'm going to set a signal fire. And I'm going to set a signal fire that they can see all the way over there from Louisville, Kentucky, straight out Interstate 64 to Beckley, by God, West Virginia. The location, the home of newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. The legal beagle himself, the consigliere of the cult of Cornette, the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen P. New. I'm going to send him this signal so that he can come and rescue us from our various complaints, all the bad wrestling. Or, even without wrestling, if you have been harmed, injured, incapacitated, inconvenienced, or otherwise pissed off by some greedy and negligent major corporation or entity, the man to call is Stephen P. New. Whether it be the sexual assault cases at the Veterans Hospital, whether it be the defective earplugs given to our service people, whether it be the poisoned groundwater and environment in Minden, West Virginia, whether it be the cancer-causing agents left in talcum powder, or now most recently, I'll have you know the Cornette family once again contacts Stephen P. New, the cancer-causing agent that has been leaking off of the Philips CPAP machines for your sleep apnea. The face mask can erode, deteriorate in a variety of ways, and you inhale that stuff, and it's been proven to cause cancer. That was Stacy's machine she was using until she just got this newer one. She used that for quite some time. We contacted Stephen. There is the sticky little situation that she has to develop cancer first, but we're keeping an eye on it. But if you're on a Philips CPAP machine, they've been recalled, and they knew about this shit for a lot longer than they let on. That's the kind of shit that's going on that you need a guy like Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084, newlawoffice.com, to be on the lookout for and to support you and to take up for your rights when something that is supposed to benefit your life instead compromises it. The man to call, Stephen P. New. And he also is the title sponsor of All-Star Wrestling's Bash in Beckley on August 7th at the Raleigh County Convention Center. And our good wishes go out to All-Star Wrestling promoter Gary Damron as well. And we hope you guys have a great event August 7th, Bash in Beckley at the Raleigh County Convention Center.
Get revenge.
Get revenge with the Unhinged. Steve, it doesn't work. Revenge doesn't work like even. Get even with Steven. Get revenge if you're unhinged.
Well, speaking of unhinged, Jim, I'm going to ask you about a topic that a lot of people have sent in questions about, as I'm sure you're aware. And I'm sure you're up to date on most of what's going on, but let me preemptively play this here at the top of it.
This is a CNN Cornette News Network update. What has crazy Uncle Dave tweeted this time? And now over to Brian and Jim.
So again, once again, you and Dave Meltzer are going at it on social media and beyond. And a lot of people want to know what's going on. Let me stop this. All right, Jim, well, now the music is over.
Thankfully.
The latest episode.
Now it's time to face the music. Uncle Dave, go ahead.
I was going to say, I guess it's the latest episode in your feud between you and Dave Meltzer, for lack of a better term.
Christ. This is the only feud I've ever been in where I was the side that was just trying not to have a fucking feud because I'm fucking fed up with it. But he won't leave it alone, will he? And people got upset at me when I actually unblocked him on Twitter the other day because I didn't want to hear his dreck about his 17-star matches with Twinkle Toes and his fucking comedy crew. I blocked him a long time ago, but I unblocked him so that I could tweet him, "Hey, Dave, why do you feel the need to slander me behind my back and then continue to email me about innocuous random shit like we're still friends? What the fuck is the matter with you?" And I had a bunch of people say, "Well, why couldn't you have done that privately with this guy instead of doing it on the internet, because I've done it privately and it won't take. He's a jilted lover. He's a stalker. And it doesn't seem to fucking sink into Dave Meltzer's head that we are not friends anymore. I have told him privately through email on at least 2, possibly 3 occasions to fuck the fuck off and leave me alone. But he doesn't get it. You have been aware of this since you have been apprised of the situation every time I've had to tell him this. What the fuck is the matter with you, Dave? Why are you still speaking to me like I haven't told you that we are fucking done and will never speak again? I'm expecting to come home sometime and see a rabbit boiling in a pot on my stove. Now, here's the thing, and we're going to read some of this, but here's the thing. It's fine if Dave wants to knock me and fucking bury me and slander me and take up for his little friends in the Lollipop Guild and all of that stuff. I don't care. But he keeps at the same time interacting with me like that we still speak, and I have not told him in a variety of ways over several instances to fuck off. I'm not speaking to him anymore. We're not friends. He's a backstabbing prick, and I don't want to have anything to do with him. You and I have talked, Brian, about why can he not understand this? He, of all people, should know, after we've talked to each other for over 35 years, when I'm working and when I'm shooting. Is in any way the things that I have said to him that you are aware of, does that sound like a work that I'm just... No, I'm sure we'll settle this one of these days, Dave. I'm just pissed right now. Or does it sound like, fuck you, leave me alone, you had your chance, you blew it, we're not friends anymore, I don't care, I don't want to talk to you?
It sounds like that, and I think anyone who knows you would know what that sounds like, and that's why, to me, I must admit, and I have been privy to a lot of things, it has always made me laugh when after all this, he still has emailed you time and time again, as if none of this is going on.
Apropos of nothing, randomly out of the blue, I will give you, and somebody said, publish the emails. Well, I don't know how to fucking tweet an email, but I'll read it to you. Hold on here. Let me find it. It's down here somewhere. This he sent me on June the 18th. Unsolicited. We had been doing, you and I on the show, our little deal where you read a program from some place, some date, and I try to guess where and when it was, right, by the people on it. We had been doing that game. And one of the cards had a Sam Steamboat Jr. It was from the 1950s, and we remarked, Sam Steamboat Jr.? Blah, blah, blah. That would be the original Sam Steamboat. So I get up one more Friday, June the 18th. No, this was sent 6 p.m. So I get up Saturday morning and I see an email from Dave Meltzer. Just sending you this because somebody sent me your guess the card thing. Not that he would have been listening. The reason Sammy Steamboat used the name Sammy Steamboat Jr. is in fact that there was a famous surfing legend, Sammy Steamboat, but it was his father. I learned that a few decades ago when Sammy Steamboat passed away. I called Lou Thez, who trained Sammy Steamboat, and he goes, no, it's the father, who was like royalty there. When Thez would go to Hawaii as champion, Sammy Steamboat had the title of King of the Beach, and all the wrestlers knew him. Everyone in the culture knew him. Thez and some others would train Sammy Jr. in real wrestling, and he was great at it, state high school champ and all that. And the father would teach Lou surfing in return. Lou considered Sammy Sr. one of his best friends. Ripper Collins took the King name in the 60s, when he feuded with Steamboat because you had this pale, fat, blonde American mocking Sammy Steamboat's famous father. That's the email. Okay, that's the kind of emails you used to get from Dave. I used to get from Dave before I had cussed him out, told him he was a piece of shit and a backstabbing prick, and to leave me the fuck alone. But that's the kind of emails he sends me in private. But you and I, Brian, we were surprised this week when suddenly we were both mentioned in the Observer. I get mentions every once in a while. You don't get them so often. But the same guy who decided to email me a jovial note about Sammy Steamboat trivia. Decided to write about, Brian, you and I, in the Observer this week, about the fucking guy hitting the ring on AEW television again. That everybody lost their fucking minds about, because it's been so long since anybody gave a shit to jump up in the ring, whether to attack someone they were mad at or even to become a star on television, since even the people in the ring that are supposed to be are not stars on TV anymore. It's been so long since anybody's seen it, everybody lost their fucking minds. It used to happen on a fucking weekly, if not multi-weekly occasion in almost every territory, and with worse intent and possibly and definitely worse outcomes. But some fat fucking guy that fancies himself a wrestler and wanted to be involved and be on TV jumped up on the apron of the ring, unarmed, and got taken down by the goddamn ring announcer before he even got in. Some idiot wanting to be on TV, live TV. You see it in news fucking broadcasts, people trying to mug and be on TV. After the fact, the guy then tweeted, "I did it for you, Jim Cornette and Brian Last." He also tweeted Vince Russo. He did it for him. I bet you he tweeted the goddamn fucking morning show in town that he did it for them because he was trying to get attention from everybody. But Dave, to his credit, immediately when that story was going around, tweeted, "No way Cornette approved of this or would ever have approved of this." But the problem was, Brian, he tweeted that before he forgot one thing. He forgot to ask Twinkle Toes McFingerbang, his mentor, his hero, his idol, his soulmate, his life partner, his best friend, whatever the fuck he is, he forgot to get Twinkle Toes' opinion. Because once Twinkle Toes decided to take the opportunity to stir up his low IQ followers, because let's face it, anybody that fucking thinks that Harpo Fingerfuck is a goddamn real legitimate professional wrestler has to be a complete moron. He got his low IQ followers all riled up by blaming it on me so I could be a bad person, so that my critiques of his bad emoting, as you have termed it, would have less cachet with the people. See, remember now, between the Bucks and Olivier and their whole inner circle, they've got their heads so far up their asses trying to sniff their own farts that they can't really see the daylight to know what's going on. So they think that they legitimately are great wrestlers and that I'm the one that's fucked up. So they try to get the people on that. Once that Uncle Dave hears that Twinkle Toes has changed their story, then he feels the need to go back and make sure that he makes Twinkle Toes happy by expressing the same opinion. Have I pretty much related the chain of events here in the correct chronological order?
For the most part. I mean, we don't know why what got into the Observer got into the Observer. We could certainly assume there were certain words that have been said by the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega that all of a sudden Dave is saying that.
The talking points?
Yeah, all of a sudden Shock Jock is in the mix, and that came right from that camp. And I think, I don't want to say too much about what I think right now, but I think Dave really, really cares what the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega think.
Oh, that's an understatement. And everybody who's known Dave for 30 years, 35 years, 25 years, whatever, we've all tried to toss our suggestions in. What has gone on with him? Is it a lot of people say he's on the payroll. You wouldn't act this way, this rabid for money. This is a personal thing. And I don't think he's been paid. I don't even know that it's that he knows that the only people that really subscribe to the Observer anymore, or the people at his main audience, likes this shit because everybody else has given up on wrestling. And if they're not going to spend any money on wrestling, they're not going to spend any money reading about it. So he's trying to keep his subscriber base. But I think, honestly, for whatever reason, I'm not explaining it, I'm just relating it. I think he just is so thrilled that these people have taken him into their bosom and he's become one of them after all these years, and the cool kids like him, and he's socially awkward to begin with, not like me. I hate people. I'm not social at all. Dave is socially awkward. He doesn't know how to talk to people or be around people. So they've taken him to their bosom. And I guess it's, like a fucking starving man given a cheeseburger, or the guy that gets out of prison given an ugly girl, or whatever. You're going to town on it. But let me read you what was in the Observer this week. The fan who hopped the rail at the beginning of the Chris Jericho MJF segment and Jericho threw a few punches at later went on Twitter and claimed he did it for Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. In a moment, it brought up the ugliest part of shock jocks, social media, and mental illness all in one package. Both Cornette and Russo make it a habit of burying AEW. Cornette because the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega's success hit a bad nerve because it proved times changed and he was out of touch. And the more success they had, the more he had to yell and scream that they weren't. Oh, my God. He can't get it. I don't care if they sell 5 billion tickets. They're a fucking embarrassment. It's shitty booking. It's shitty, fake, silly wrestling. And he can't stand it that I've been telling him this for 5 fucking years. Because it shits on what he likes. Russo was just mad because Khan would never hire him and he could pull the rating stuff for people who don't understand how television has changed in the last 10 years. Anyway, you have this guy looking for attention from both Cornette and Russo, which is an irony in and of itself, saying he wanted to show these guys dressing up and playing wrestlers were pussies, so he wanted to attack them. Got news for you. I'm not the first person that brought up the fact that these guys are dressing up playing wrestlers and look like a bunch of pussies either. It's obvious if you have vision. The guy was nuts, but he was encouraged by Cornette's hate speech and wanted to impress Cornette, who promptly, figuratively told him to go to hell, that he doesn't condone anyone jumping the barricades. So that does put Cornette over Donald Trump, the guy he's usually compared to, because Trump would have wished the guy well. I have so many similarities to fucking Donald Trump. See, he's just trying to piss me off.
That's the one that gets, I don't know if you want me to say anything yet, so I'll just...
Go ahead.
That's the one that fucking gets me, because he says, because people compare him. Dave compares you all the time to Donald Trump. And again, I'll say my opinion at the end, but this all comes from the fact that Dave short-circuited because you didn't accept the wrestlers he anointed. And that's all it is. Kenny Omega doesn't get into the Observer Hall of Fame if Dave doesn't give him all those stars. Dave anointed the Bucks and Omega. And for you to reject them the way you have means you're rejecting Dave. And Dave can't fucking take it. And a lot of his friends think the same fucking thing. But when you do the Trump thing, that pisses me off because everyone knows what side we were on politically. And just because you don't like that we don't like, or specifically you that you don't like, the type of wrestling that he thinks everyone should like, that makes you Trump-like. He emailed you. I remember one of the previous emails. I actually have it here. He emailed you previously the same week that he compared you to Donald Trump.
Yes.
He emailed you thanking you for all your political talk. And that's when I was like, this is bullshit. Dave always says he's not working a gimmick on social media. He's working a fucking gimmick.
He's working a gimmick on social media.
He fucking trashes Jim on his message board, in his newsletter, and on Twitter. And then he fucking tries to message you about thanking you. It was the thank you note. Thank you for all your political talk.
You're making a difference there with your platform. Anyway, and by the way, I didn't tell the American public you were stolen from, you were lied to, you've been cheated, and if you don't go to the Capitol and take back our country, then the fucking economy will crash, and communism will take over, and our lives as we know it will come to an end. That's encouraging violence. When the President of the United States says that, that's encouraging violence. When I tell somebody what they can see with their own eyes, that this fucking twinkle toes fucking bullshit is phony bad wrestling, that's my opinion and the opinion of a lot of other people. such as all the millions of people that ain't watching this shit. And that's what Dave can't stand. Anyway, I continue with his writing. Look, Cornette never wanted anyone to jump the rail and the guy to screw loose, but the guy went out and told everyone he did it to impress Cornette and to a lesser extent Russo. Well, therefore, fucking lock Jodie Foster up. Are they responsible because one of their listeners is a nutcase? No. Will either reflect on the fact that even though the guy was a nut, they were the ones who influenced him by their own over-the-top stuff? Of course not. Omega wrote, is it finally time to assume some responsibility and dial the online persona back a bit? Your low IQ man children, this is Omega talking about our fans, have evolved from parroting your comments to actually acting out in attempted violence. That's what got Dave to start this. Oh, I'm sorry. I used the wrong talking point. Cornette responded by agreeing the guy was a nut, and they agree on that one thing, and then said two clarifications, which this was my tweet to Twinkle Toes. Unlike you, I've seen violence in an arena, and this wasn't it. And secondly, looking at your supporters, I wouldn't toss the phrase low IQ around. Of course, that's exactly what I'm going to say, because he's calling our fans stupid because we don't like silly fake wrestling. Fuck you, you fucking curly-haired piece of shit. Continuing with Dave. One thing for certain, Jim Cornette is among the last people who should talk about IQ levels of supporters, because legitimately that's the one thing he has in common with Vince Russo is some of the dumbest supporters, which does reflect on their childish shock jock attempts to rile people up for attention. Besides our polls and our surveys, where we have a very highly educated and well-earning audience, we also have an audience of people that like wrestling, not this bullshit. That's why they say the same things, because people with eyes and that have seen wrestling and that don't have an agenda can understand this is not good. So that makes them the stupid people. That's what Dave Meltzer says. I wouldn't talk about IQ levels of supporters if I was him. Some of the dumbest supporters. That's a quote. Fuck you, Dave, on behalf of the cult of Cornette and anybody else that likes wrestling, including many of your longtime friends who can't stand this bullshit and won't even watch it anymore, the business they were in. Fuck you. So, continuing with Dave's writing, the only difference is that Cornette is actually so entertaining people still talk about him, while Russo is almost completely ignored at this point. Well, you got a point there. Brian Last tried to deflect from the subject, saying that Omega should cut bait with Don Callis for how he treated women behind the scenes in Impact, and said bad things only count when they're done by people who criticize your bad in-ring emoting. Last hasn't cut bait with Cornette, so that probably wasn't the tack to take. I don't understand what that means. Is that a sentence that makes sense?
Is this a paragraph that makes sense?
No. Omega then responded to Cornette, and remember, this is where Twinkle Toes then said, well, I'll take the high road, and people were like, well, at least that was nice of him. No, he's a fucking smarmy, smart-aleck piece of shit. He probably wrote this while he was fondling himself thinking about Riho matches. Hey, Jim, I think you're one of the greatest wrestling historians going, and I enjoyed your work with Dark Side of the Ring. For whatever it's worth, I sincerely hope that you're remembered for your positive contributions to the wrestling business. That's all. And of course, I didn't write back because he fucking gave up. However, Dave continues, nobody can take away from Cornette that he's an entertaining talker and is great on Dark Side. But that doesn't take away that his catering to the lowest common denominator did lead to nut jobs having irrational hate on people for no reason other than he riled them up. And ultimately, that's what created the situation in question. No, a guy that wanted to be a fucking star and figured none of these people probably going to be able to hurt me jumped up on the apron of the ring, and the fucking ring announcer took him down.
During Jericho and MJF.
During Jericho and MJF.
Not during, fucking Orange Cassidy and the bunch of fucking idiots. During Jericho and MJF.
Or the Cucamonga Kids, or Twinkle Toes, or Brandon Cutlet, or Dwarf Dong Sucker, or whatever. Anyway, again, lowest common denominator, nut jobs, irrational hate on people for no reason. If people do hate any of the AEW roster, it's because they are depriving them of actual legitimate wrestling that they used to enjoy. It's not irrational. Geez, I can't stand that shit. That's pretty rational. If you're looking at an AEW television program, the rational expression would be, what the fuck are these idiots doing? But anyway, continuing and closing with Dave, the sad part of all of this, and this really is the sad part, is that all the attention created by this situation that big stars like Cornette and Omega and Matt Hardy and many others were talking about this lowlife is an encouragement to others to follow suit, and the best thing would be for everyone to just pretend he doesn't exist and for people like me not to have to cover them. So did anyone learn a thing from this? Perhaps, but not the people who needed to. Let me explain this again for Dave, because I know he's listening now, since apparently he's hanging on our every word. Go back, people out there, and Dave yourself, and listen to the last time you were a guest on this program. What was it? It was about 3 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. I tried to get him to just even say, okay, just the dick spot. Just tell people that you think that Joey Ryan, because this was before he got outed, is throwing people around by his dick is not phony and silly. Just tell people that that's phony and silly and that's stupid. And it shouldn't be on TV, but it works for his audience. He wouldn't come off of a thing on this, on Twinkle Toes, or on the Wrestling the Invisible Man, or the sex doll, or the, all of the dance routines. He wouldn't knock it. But did I say fuck you to him on the air, Brian? Did I fucking ream him out? Did I call him a piece of shit and argue with him? No, I didn't, because we'd been friends for a while, and I couldn't understand why an old friend of mine that used to know wrestling and used to love wrestling and watched all the wrestling in the world and talked sense, I couldn't understand what had gone on with him. But I laughed about it as much as possible. I was all right, well, and I still maintained that Dave really cared about what he was doing, cared about being right when it came to reporting shit, cared about being right when it came to historical pieces and the obituaries or the tributes, and that he really, over all these years, had done an incredible job applying himself toward trying to document wrestling, and he didn't mean to lead people astray or mislead them with information. He corrected things when he knew he got them wrong. That's the Dave that I knew for 30 years, and Dave that I was taken up for, not just when he was on this program, but I said it many times when other people like Bruce Pritchard, now let's face it, you can't believe Bruce Pritchard if his tongue is fucking notarized, or Eric Bischoff, who's a complete fucking idiot, all these other people that wanted to knock him and discredit Dave because they wanted to rewrite history and not be blamed for their own stupid things they were involved in. I took up for Dave Meltzer because he was telling the truth. And I would tell people that. And finally, it got to the point where he kept going over the moon about Twinkle Toes and AEW and the Hardley Boys and the whole 9 yards that I said, hey, weed's legal in California. I can't explain this guy that I've known for so long suddenly having this goddamn opinion, but still, he takes his business seriously and he doesn't lie to people on purpose. I just can't explain his opinions. Is that not what I was saying for a long, long time?
You, for a long time, longer than people realize, because we started hearing from people who would see things on the message board or little shots in the Observer. He started taking shots at you, talking about you being out of touch and how you have nothing to contribute. Yeah. Whenever anyone would say anything about you, it would...
Along about the first AEW pay-per-view is when this started, didn't it? When I had said, I'll wait to see what they come up with, but I can't believe that any of this is going to be in any way serious. They're going to have to prove me wrong.
Now, I will say, and I think this is irrational, but from the bits I've heard from Dave over the last couple of years, he seems, I don't know if he wants an apology or what he's waiting for, but the fact that AEW didn't go out of business in the spring of 2020, like he says you predicted,
yo, he'll beat that one to death. And when we saw the first couple of TVs, I said, my God, they'll be off the air in 6 months. This is fucking horrible. And the viewership was fucking horrible. I didn't realize, I should have, that the TNT doesn't care whether the program is any good or not, and that's the ratings that they're willing to accept these days in television. So he was wrong. They weren't off the air in 6 months. Okay, that means that TNT likes a bad television program, and they don't care if they get over 1 million people. But then, so I was wrong about everything. No, it's still a bad television program. It's bad wrestling. It's wrestling written for kids by kids. And for Dave going around saying, well, this is such incredible long-term storytelling and such incredible subtle psychology that this wrestling artist puts in his performances, when I'm over here with 40 years experience in the business saying this sucks and here's why and explaining why, it made them all look bad. So he had to start knocking me behind my back. Not even in the Observer sometimes, but on the message boards or then on Twitter. Then I had to fucking finally tell him, look, what the fuck? We've been friends for all this time, but because I am telling the truth and giving my opinion about what I'm seeing from these asswipes that I knew were going to be a bunch of jackoffs from the beginning. I knew they couldn't play this straight. I knew they couldn't be serious because they don't have the fucking talent. And now they have ruined the opportunity for a serious wrestling program to ever be on network TV in our lifetimes. So fuck them. I'm going to fucking tell everybody how much they suck. And we've been talking like this, me and him, for 30 years. He knows me. He has to fucking say what they say. He's just making it up for attention. He's a shock jock. He doesn't really think this. How the fuck am I that good of a fucking actor that I can say all this shit without meaning it? You fucking idiot. So I finally had to tell Dave, you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough of you knocking me behind my back, knocking me on the internet, telling people I'm out of touch. Hey, Dave, what's the pizza order? What would you like for pizza for lunch? Well, if Cornette had stayed in touch with pizza, he would be a great person to order. But since he didn't stay in touch with the modern aspects of pizza, we shouldn't ask him.
Ask Mike today.
Ask Mike today. And you couldn't tie him in a chair and pay him to watch AEW. So this is where we're at. I finally had to fucking send Dave a personal email telling him, fuck you. I'm tired of you knocking me and telling people I don't know what I'm talking about on the internet and every chance you get when I've done nothing but take up for you and defend you for what I believed was true. I'm sick and fed up with you slandering the Midnight Express. I told him this a couple or 3 times on Twitter and finally an email saying the Young Bucks are the modern Midnight Express. The Midnight Express did not get into this thing between me and you, and there's no reason to talk about them like that. I told him that a couple of times. And finally I said, fuck it. You like these guys so much? Fine, you backstabbing prick. Fuck you. Love on them all you want. We're done. And then he still wouldn't stop sending me these fucking emails, so I had to tell him again. I think I sent you the second one. We're fucking done, asshole, backstabber, turncoat, traitor. I was not the one knocking you. You were knocking me. I laughed about your fucking weird wrestling taste, but I defended you as a person, and you proceed to, because you're so in love with Twinkle Toes' ball sack and the Hardley Boys' fucking taints, that you're going to stab me in the back and slander me all over the place. I'll tell you again publicly now, Dave, because I've told you privately and it don't take. Fuck you. We're done. I don't ever want to speak to you again or see you. I think you've gone completely insane. So do many of your old friends. I don't know what's going on in your fucking life. Are you on medication you need to be off of? Are you off of some you need to be on? But get this through your head. It ain't a gimmick. It ain't shock jock. You ought to know better than anybody. It's me. I don't like them, and now I don't like you. And I'm going to continue to say whatever the fuck I want to say about their shitty wrestling because they're sabotaging a business I spent 40 years in and used to have a lot of affection for. I am not advocating anybody commit violence and mayhem toward them because they're doing a pretty good enough job of crippling each other on their own just by trying to have these shitty wrestling matches. But to try to fucking blame me because some drunk wannabe delusional asshole jumps up on the ring, doesn't even make it in, because I tell people that their wrestling sucks. Fuck you. You know why the guy jumped up in the ring? Because everybody can play. Nothing about this is in any way serious. It's all a fucking clown show. Everybody can take part. Nobody's serious, and nobody's really getting hurt, except for all the people that really get hurt because we don't know how to work. That right there is what got Sad Sack to jump up in the ring and be part of the fucking show. Otherwise, Dave, from me to you after all these years, please take this to heart. Fuck you. Leave me alone. Turn blue and drop over. And by the way, here's something else. What have we not heard, Brian, about the aftermath of this fan jumping and trying to jump in the ring? What's the one thing you would think that you would hear that we haven't heard yet?
That he was arrested?
What did they charge him with? Was he arrested? Was he taken to jail? What was he charged with? When is his hearing? When is his court date? He was on Twitter the next day. Fucking say, I did it for you, Jim. I did it for you, Russo. I did it for you, mailman down the street. And he's been cutting promos and crowing about it. Does that sound like a guy that's been suitably chastened for his actions? Did they arrest him? Did he take the ride in the police car? Did he go to jail? Did they charge him with assault, with trespass, with disorderly conduct, with all the charges that you can charge somebody in that situation with? Did they throw the book at him? I haven't heard a goddamn word. If they expect to cut that kind of behavior off at the knees, that's what they ought to be doing, not complaining because a guy with a podcast that reaches almost as many people as their pissy amateur hour television show does, telling people how much it sucks. How about when somebody does fuck up and cross the line, throw the book at them and make them sorry about it? Just like that one of those clowns they just sentenced to 8 months in prison for the insurrection on January the 6th. The prosecutors were asking for 18 months. They should have gotten more. This guy wasn't even violent. I hope there's some 20-year sentences for the people that beat the police with the fucking flagpoles. However, you hear about that because that is going to discourage these low-life cretins, these ignoramuses from doing shit like that again, since that fits a good part of the AEW clientele. Not our fans, the smart ones, but those dumb supporters, the low IQ supporters of the other folks over there. That would discourage them from doing some shit. Did they arrest him? Did he take a ride in a cop car? Was he handcuffed? Did they throw the book at him? Does he have a court date? What's he facing? How bad are they fucking that guy's life up? Because I guarantee you, everybody that I ever had experience with that jumped in the ring, whether it was in my match or somebody else's, not only did they get their ass handed to them in various ways, but they took the ride to the fucking county jail, and they got booked, and they got fingerprinted, and they got photographed, and they had to come up with bail, and they had to go back to court and think more about whether they ought to have jumped in that ring or not, or taken that swing at that fucking wrestler. Some of them then would turn around and file lawsuits against us, and we'd all have a merry time in court. But I don't hear anything otherwise than Justin Roberts snatched him. There was a video of 10 seconds of him dragging him away from ringside, and he's back on Twitter the next day crowing about it. You mean to tell me that this goddamn AEW as a wrestling promotion is so inexperienced and so amateurish that they don't even know to arrest the marks that jump in the ring? Somebody needs to enlighten us on what's happening to this guy. Anyway, that's what's happened lately with our old friend Uncle Dave Meltzer, who is a jilted, spurned paramour and can't apparently get through his head when somebody has told him in this many words and many more, fuck you, you backstabbing prick. You fucking slander me when I've taken up for you for years with everybody trying to knock you. You want to fucking kiss and love on these fucking guys? Feel free to. You don't need to speak to me at all. I do not miss you. As a matter of fact, I forgot to block him again on Twitter after I tweeted him, but I should block him again. But he will continue running his dick licker every time that he gets a chance about me because he's mad that I won't apologize to him about the way that I've spoken about his friends. And he gets his talking points from the people that he gets everything else from, his friends at All Petite Wrestling. Your final comments on Uncle Dave.
Well, there's a lot there. I will say, I've been someone on this show typically, even going back to the Bruce Pritchard episode where I fought with Bruce Pritchard on the air because Dave was right. Bruce was lying. Bruce wasn't telling the truth. I've defended Dave numerous times. But I have to say, especially because I've been privy to other things and I talk to other people and I see other things, Dave's credibility for me is at an all-time low, especially when it comes to modern wrestling analysis. And I see sometimes when people go, oh, you just kiss AEW's ass, and it'll say, well, you don't read The Observer. I read The Observer. I've read every issue of The Observer. Dave will say if he thinks something is wrong based on, remember when he said that he thought they had a women viewer problem because he heard from like 3 women in his life about there's no real.
Well, now, wait a minute. He doesn't have 3 women in his life.
Well, he said that.
From 3 random women.
But I don't really pay any attention to his modern analysis of wrestling because he rates things a lot higher than I would, typically with certain people. And also, he doesn't call out the bad stuff. Chris Jericho could go out there and do a universally hated segment. He won't say anything about it. The Young Bucks, when they do bad stuff, when the booking doesn't hold up, none of this stuff. He loves the Young Bucks comedy. I'm sorry. Dave has become the 60-year-old man going to the K-pop concerts, trying to fit in. He thinks we don't fit in because we're not trying to dress like a couple 20-year-olds and going to the K-pop concert. But we're actually living in reality. And it really bothers me when he attacks the listeners, because he's a fucking listener. But when he attacks the fucking listeners as low IQ, look, every audience, and we said this before, every audience has their crazies. Everyone. Dr. Ruth has fucking crazy fans. Everyone has them.
4 out of 10 people in America are fucking crazy.
But you attack our audience, and then, what he wrote in The Observer about our audience. Hey, listen, when you are fucking embarrassed about your own message board, and everyone involved with your fucking website is embarrassed by your message board, and you talk about it, don't talk about our people. Go look at your own fucking shop, Dave. And, you want to talk about low IQ, the Observer Awards, which, Dave holds those things up because, they get covered in some of the Japanese magazines and different things. It's a small percentage of the Observer readers that vote on them. Want to talk low IQ? I got nothing wrong with Brian Alvarez. Always gotten along with him, haven't spoken to him in many years, not a shot at him. But his book, 100 Things WWE Fans Should Know and Do Before They Die,
what?
Was voted Book of the Year over Andre the Giant's biography.
Wait a minute,
and Buddy
what?
Rogers' biography.
Wait, what? I didn't even know that was a thing. But the Buddy Rogers biography by Hornbaker and the Andre biography by Pat LaPrade and goddamn it, I've blanked out on his name.
Bertrand Hebert.
Bertrand Hebert.
A great man.
That got beat out by 100 Things WWF Fans Need to Do Before They Die by Brian Alvarez.
The high IQ voters for the awards decided to look past the 2 landmark publications of Andre the Giant and Buddy Rogers biographies and focus on the 100 things WWE fans should know and do before they die. Again, not a shot at Brian Alvarez. I hope the book did well. Obviously, it probably did. But you mean to tell me this high IQ audience voted for that book over, again, 2 landmark publications in terms of research and wrestling history? So don't give me the IQ audience.
We're not saying he shouldn't have written it. We're saying that it's ridiculous to praise that book above these 2 incredible books about real stars because it's a goddamn potato chip wrestling book that you read on the toilet.
Everything shifts for this narrative for what the Bucks say. Dave never said anything bad about your run in Ring of Honor until the Bucks started opening their mouths a few years after that. Never said a word. Defended your run in Ring of Honor.
Well, that's because he knew what was going on at the time.
Yeah, but now it's a different story. Now you should have dropped everything and pushed the Bucks because look at the business they did a few years later. I mean, it's completely insane. When you talk about I should have cut bait with Jim, I'm not sure exactly for what. I'm guessing that means Dave should have cut bait with Jim because he was friends with him until Jim said, enough. You keep running your mouth behind my back about me.
But he said you should cut bait with me because you said Omega should cut bait with Don Callis. Don Callis, well, I don't know what we can say, what we can't say, but I've never been accused of the things Don Callis was accused of.
And by the way, Dave didn't say I was wrong. And Dave didn't say I was wrong. And
look, he has the story. He just won't run it.
Well, that's the thing. Everyone has a story.
They can't run it because of
every wrestling journalist out there in America and Canada has the fucking story about what went on in Impact. Everyone knows the whole story. There are text messages out there. There are documents out there. There's a lot about the Asper family and the investigation. The whole story's out there.
I like the gimmick investigator that was really working, supposedly an independent investigator, but was working for the company that was doing the investigation. That's great wrestling, right?
So again, everyone has the story. It's just I'm willing to say what I know here on the air. But Dave didn't say I was wrong about that, but don't give me the cut bait thing, because you want to go down a list of people Dave should have cut bait with at one point or another? Fuck, you had Jericho write a poem for Art Barr when he died. Art Barr was in Mexico because he couldn't get work in the States because he was a rapist. Don't give me a fucking lecture on morals, Dave.
Well, now, wait a minute. He was not a rapist.
Yes, he was.
He was only statutorially.
No, that's the misconception. The woman literally said she did not want to have sex, and Art Barr's defense was, I thought she wanted to have sex, just not here.
Okay.
So no.
Then in that case, I take back my caveat. I thought it was just a statutory situation.
But again, it all comes down to you can cut bait. Dave has lost the concept, and Dave has lost the plot, and Dave is in a midlife crisis in a wrestling bubble. That's scary. He is completely in love with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. He anointed them, and if you have a problem with them, he comes after you. He goes after people on Twitter in the most disrespectful, condescending, clown-like way, and he somehow thinks that behavior is acceptable. He has no idea how to interact with people on a normal level. And I've heard lots of old audio of Dave. On various shows, we've played old audio of Dave. He's not the same fucking guy anymore.
It's not, and
he could barely get through a sentence.
Anyway.
So I'm not going to listen to him tell me about what's in touch or out of touch, or who's a low IQ audience and who's a high IQ audience, because he's just as embarrassed about his people. Trust me on that. I'm not going to listen to any of this. Dave, go kiss their ass in private. If you're going to do it publicly, we're going to fire back. Ridiculous. You've been sending Jim these fucking emails for months. Every time you rip him publicly, and then you send him this, and then he goes on Twitter the other day and says, I was just being nice. Oh, so basically everything you're doing is a work to get fucking love from the Bucks and Omega, and then when they're not around, that's when you send him the nice emails thanking him for his political coverage and giving him wrestling information. Get the fuck out of here.
When I actually finally said publicly on Twitter, hey, why do you keep sending me the fucking nice emails like we still speak and then slander me in public? Well, I just thought you'd like it. It was trivia and I talked to Luthez. Yeah, I'd like it from somebody that I like, but not from you, you backstabbing turncoat prick. That's it. So I'm sorry. And I was willing to overlook that you liked these fucking people and joke about it. Even in all evidence to the contrary, that you think that they're good wrestlers, I was willing to just joke about that and move on and not knock you, Dave. But you chose to do this out-of-touch thing. Like, oh, my God, he's so out of touch. People started eating cow shit off the road 5 years ago and liking it, but he refuses to. He's out of touch.
Yeah, do me a favor. I've listened to Dave on his show. Dave, don't call someone out of touch. You have no idea what's going on in the world outside of wrestling. You have zero idea of the real world outside of wrestling. Do not call someone out of touch.
I don't know if I wish I didn't know what was going on in the world outside right now, to be honest with you. It'd probably be ignorance is bliss. In that case, Dave is ecstatic. But anyway, that's the fucking problem. He just felt the need to, I wonder if his mother was still alive, if she said, boy, who's that shitty wrestler on TV, if he would turn on her. If she didn't like old Twinkle Toes, how much does this mean to him? That, oh my God, they're telling the truth about my favorite wrestlers, that they suck, even though I've said that they're great, so now I must destroy them all. Fuck. I don't know. I can't explain it. This is your show.
It is crazy. I'll just say it is crazy, though. And for anyone out there, look, Jim's my friend. For some reason, we get along. Who knows why?
I have no idea.
What the fuck?
Really, sometimes you're hard to take.
Hey, speak for yourself. But what I'm going to say is I certainly have seen you have issues with people, and I know what causes the issues, and I know the problems. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes you may take things a little too far.
Sometimes I do.
With that said, and all things being equal, and I call out Jim on air and off air where I think he's wrong, this was Dave, not Jim. Jim, I was talking to him, he was biting his tongue while Dave was ripping him time after time after time. This is the one case of a friendship blowing up where I could specifically say, I don't think Jim was at fault here. And I would say
tried. So. My hands are clean. I gave it an effort. It's been going on. I reached that point where I've had all I can stands. I can't stands no more. And I unloaded, but it took a while to get there. And then the thing that's been most frustrating for me is I've never cussed anybody like that, either verbally or in writing, and told them what I thought of them, and that I never wanted to speak to them again, and we were completely done as any type of friends or acquaintances, and just have them no-sell it, and just act like it did later.
Costanza.
It didn't happen.
Costanza gets fired from work and just shows up the next day like nothing's wrong.
What? Why shouldn't I be here? That's the thing I can't understand. He acts like I never said these things to him. And then when I see him slandering me in public again and say something else, it's like, what? You're upset?
No, then it's you're immature and you're like Trump. And basically all of these things, Dave has an inability to look in the mirror about a lot of things. And that was said to me by one of his friends, actually. Dave has an inability to look in the mirror. But Jim, let's move on. Let's get one or two questions before we wrap up this shit show.
Now we're both in a bad mood.
Someone, and I'm not going to use this listener's name, I'll thank him, but one of the listeners recently, let me try to read what he wrote here without saying his name. I work backstage at Smackdown. I have a 21-page document that an agent producer left near Pyro.
Oh, God.
He never came back for it. It has details of every single segment of the show, including the scripted promos.
Oh, Jesus.
And it has who the agents are. He also says Sami Zayn was the one that stood out the most as walking around rehearsing his promo all night. Do you have any interest in knowing who the agents are? You bring this up every now and then.
Well, I didn't know you were going to go there for that question. I was just, before we get to that, what the fuck? At one point, when we have the production meeting, let's say pay-per-view or Raw taping day or whatever, the production meeting would be at noon or at 11 in the morning or whatever. Everybody is giving out the format for the show, right? Not only the agents and the wrestling side of people, the people on creative and the agents and Vince and the announcers, but also the TV crew, camera people, director, producer, the important people that are in the production meeting. And the WWF back in the 90s, there was probably 30 people in those meetings. I can't imagine what they look like now. Every fucking format had a name on it. Because if a format was found laying around, you knew exactly who to go to and beat about the head and face with a ball-peen hammer. Because for exactly the reason that the formats had too much information. And if you left it laying around, it's like you're behind enemy lines in World War II and you're leaving government fucking secrets where the Nazis can find them. You are exposing the business when you leave the formats or the paperwork around where building employees and janitors and security people or whoever can find them, which is why that's what their formats always, it made me uncomfortable anyway, because the format is the same that's given out to everybody and it has everything. It has the interviews. It has who's going to go over, play whose music at the end. That's why I've said before, TV formats in wrestling used to be one page. Segment 1, segment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Open, desk, announcers, 2 ring, match. Out of match, 2 VTR interview. That was all that was on the format. You could hang that up on the fucking wall in any building you were in. And yes, everybody knows a TV show has to have a run sheet. You got to know what match is coming up one after another, but it didn't give anything away about the business. Then the WCW started doing a lot of paperwork, but the formats remained the same, and you had extra paperwork to give to fewer people, only the people that needed to be in on what was going on in terms of those promos or those matches or whatever. The WWF formats started being fucking 7-8 pages for a single show, and they would put in verbiage, and they would put in finish, or they'd put in music cues. And then if you start leaving that around, then you're completely fucked if an outsider finds it. And now that they've got a 21-page run sheet for a fucking TV show that includes everything, and they're leaving them around like your goddamn bubblegum wrappers. What the fuck? Here they are calling me right now to find out what's going on. Hold it. I don't need none, don't want none, don't have none. Pick your answer and shut the fuck up. There we go. Wow. All right. Anyway. So what I was saying about the formats is now they leave these things around and there's everything, and it's embarrassing. Remember, there was several years ago, one of the Raw formats, they were only about 14 pages at that point, was reprinted on the internet for everybody to see. Dusty, literally, when we went to TV for the syndicated TV or for TBS, he would have a fucking piece of paper that he had handwritten everybody's initials or their nickname. Kevin Sullivan was either Sully or Devil. Dennis Condrey was DC Cab, because that's when the movie came out. Bobby Eaton was BLE, Bobby Lee Eaton. It'd be BLE and DC Cab versus Maggie and whatever the fuck, right? Magnum TA. And that's all that was hanging on the wall. You didn't know what the fuck it was if you were working on the show, barely. But now they just throw this paperwork around and expect it. Oh, my God. But yeah, used to, they'd put the name. When they had some people finding formats laying around, they'd put your name on it. And if somebody found your format unattended with your name on it, you got some fucking feet stuck up your ass.
Well, there's a name over here in the top corner. What does it say? P. Levesque. No name on this one. It is entitled Smackdown Live number 1143. Welcome Home, Revision 3.
Oh, my God.
There have been 3 revisions. But, I mean, it's so scripted.
You know, we used to revise shit at the show when somebody didn't show up. And then we'd scratch their name out and put somebody else in. Otherwise, if it fucking worked yesterday, it should be just as good today.
Even Vince McMahon's promo where he said, "Where the hell have you been to the fans?" That was scripted. That's in the format.
Oh, man.
The pages are a little out of order, but for instance, Bianca Belair versus Carmella, the producers were TJ Wilson and Molly Holly. Story of the match. Bianca Belair is no stranger to defending her SmackDown Women's Championship, but the EST of WWE is certainly accustomed to having more than 1 week to prepare for a match with her title on the line. Bianca's planned opponent, Bayley, is out due to an injury, leaving room for Carmella to slide in, make a run at the title. Will Carmella be able to take advantage of the unexpected circumstances and secure the coveted championship?
Oh, my God. I assume that's for the announcers. That's the only people it could be for. And good God, if you have to write it out for the announcers like that, then do you have to also spoon feed them and wipe their ass after they shit?
6-man tag match, Edge, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic Mysterio versus Roman Reigns and the Usos, the Agents, Michael Hayes, and Pat Buck. Michael Hayes still agenting matches. I didn't even realize
it's amazing. The one guy you thought would have been fired by Vince McMahon, well, he was the first time he worked for him within 24 hours, and he's been there for 25 years.
Here's a promo. I'll play the role of Kayla Braxton here. Edge, despite your loss, you are one step closer to defeating Roman Reigns this Sunday.
Wait a minute. They've written the stand-up announcers pitched in the back? They've written that out?
Edge, despite your loss, you are one step closer to defeating Roman Reigns this Sunday for the Universal Championship. Edge interrupts and says, Kayla, I wish that were the case. I wish by locking my arms on Roman's neck and making him scream and flare, I somehow unlocked the magic formula to take the Universal Championship.
Oh, it's like it's like a script for a movie. My God. You know, the other way to do it would be, okay, you're interviewing me and we're in the back. I say, who am I working with? How long we got? Okay, Brian, why don't you ask me a question like this? And you'd ask me the question like that and I'd answer it and I'd do the promo. That's the preparation that you would do if you actually knew what the fuck you were doing. They're writing this out word for word and putting it on paper and handing it to these for pre-tapes? A fucking 45-second pre-tape is written? Who does that?
Vince McMahon.
Oh, my God.
And then Seth Rollins came out here because it has Seth. Boy, oh boy, it looks like your plan might be working. The scratching, the clawing, the improbable comebacks. That's right, comebacks. Plural. No one speaks like this when you run into anyone or in any way in life. Rollins cackles and exits as we go out on Edge and dissolve.
I've done quite a bit of interviewing in my time when I was one of the pronouncers. And if I was interviewing a younger talent who may not be, as well-versed in interviews as I was, I would tell them, hey, I'll pitch it to you like this. I'll say this or set this up or ask this question, and then you answer it and go on with your fucking deal. And maybe we would discuss if he'd say, what about if I said, oh, yeah, that'd be good, whatever the fuck. Okay, let's do it. Let's try one. If it's live, then you're not going to try one. You're just going to do it. But if it's tape, okay, let's try one. And you do that. And then if it's not right, you go, well, you know what? Shit, I kind of fucked up that. I should have. Okay, boom, boom, boom. We'll do it again. I used to get zoned out bad. I've never done so many retakes and multiple takes anywhere as I did in the WWE. And especially if Vince was producing it himself. There was one time in 95 remember when the Watts had his last straw, the straw that broke the Cowboys' back, when he wrote formatted a show for the heels to go off the air with, it was Owen and Bulldog and Mabel getting fucking heat on Michaels and whoever the other baby faces were, and like a big Mid-South schmoz to go off the air. And then Vince saw that and decided he wanted to put that match on first, and he re-edited the show, put that match on first, and then had us all come to Stamford to cut a promo referring to what had happened earlier in the show when it was supposed to be the end of the show. And he must have had me do that thing, and it was a 3-minute promo, 6 or 7 times, just from wording of something that he would hear me say, and he'd say, well, accentuate that more on this one. This was early in my tenure, and I had not worked on the creative team with him up till before that. That was yet to come. So I was not prepared for this. We didn't used to do a second take unless you fucked up, there was a technical issue, or somebody cussed. And I've got to be honest, my entire career, in most cases, after 2 or 3 times doing a promo, I start to zone out. I can't, then everything after that is not as good as the original ones were. So, and of course, I'm not talking about if I bust something because I fumfer and mispronounce some word or somebody's name or whatever, but I'm talking about if I do a promo, oh my God, who can this be now? I don't know. There. Anyway, when I start doing a promo, and I do a promo, and then I have to redo it for some technical reason, or there was noise, or blah, 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 or whatever. But my promo has been fine. Okay, I'll try to do it again. But if they said do it again, lighting or whatever, and they were big on lighting up there, I can't get it back, because when you do a promo, it should not sound rehearsed. Well, if I'm saying basically the same thing every time now, over and over, besides the fact I'm getting bored with it because I did my shit and they didn't have their shit together, it's not as spontaneous. It's not as good. the more you do it, the less good it gets. So the first take usually is the best one, and that's the one I always try to go with. And that's just the way we all learned it, because most of the shit was live or one take or time is of the essence. And then when you start redoing shit, retaking it over and over to get this and that, then you lose all the fucking oomph out of it. And for someone to have given me a piece of paper with everything I was supposed to say, well, that would have been insane, because how am I going to memorize that? It would sound like I'd memorized it if I could, which I probably couldn't. So you say with any top talent or any talent, you go and say, here's your point. Here's who you're working with. Here's how much time you've got to talk. Here's where we're going, the match or the fucking town or the way to further the story, whatever. Here's your bullet points. Run the play. You're the talent. You're the fucking player. I'm the coach. Run the fucking play. There's your goddamn information. If you have to write, I've written, as I've mentioned, in OVW and a lot of times in Ring of Honor, when it was only me and Delirious or me and OVW by myself giving everybody all of their shit, I would write the story that the guy should be telling in the promo, what he's supposed to be talking about, who, etc. And I would write it down, and then I would tell him verbally the promo. Here's what you need to be talking about. And I'd tell him verbally like I would say it. And then I'd say, here's everything I just said on paper. Now put this in your own words and tell me the story back. Don't say what's on the paper. Tell me the fucking story. The paper is there so you can remember all the fucking bullet points. They have wrung all the fucking spontaneity out of this thing. So, but anyway, what I was saying is they do a lot of takes up there and they get worse every time. And scripting the goddamn question from the interviewer, Jesus Christ. I've done 5,000 interviews, and I've done 5,000 interviews where I was interviewing the other person because I was the TV announcer. Nobody ever had to write the fucking question. Brian, it's been over a week since WrestleMania. We've seen that big match that you had with Dave Meltzer where you stuck his head up his ass. Well, now, what do you want to do next? It's a goddamn question to lead to the talent.
I started with his head. Next is his feet.
But now you're going to stick his toes in his ears. When you got your toes stuck in your ears, well, as Phil Hickerson would say, you're in a hell of a position.
If he really was my opponent, I'd probably go for the fingers, now that I think about it.
Anyway.
Apparently there was a confrontation backstage, Jim, produced by TJ Wilson and Molly Holly. Bianca Belair minding her own business when Carmella showed up. Bianca steps to Carmella and gets right in her face. Carmella waves her off, saying, "Wait, honey, I'm here to take the pressure off you. When we're out there in the ring, no one will be looking at you. All eyes will be on me, the most beautiful woman in all of WWE and the next SmackDown Women's Champion." Bianca plays along and says,
"Oh, God, no. They're even giving stage direction?"
"If I'm being honest, you're right. I am stressing." Carmella smiles as Bianca pauses. Bianca then says, "Because I can't decide. Should I break your cheekbones first? Or maybe I'll snap you like a twig and save your face for last." Carmella snaps. "My face belongs in a museum, honey."
Yeah, because it's 500 years old.
If you're lucky, that's where you will go after I make your career extinct. And then that ends, and the next segment here. The commentators note that the paranoid, perplexing, passionate, so-called conspiracy victim, Sami Zayn, is next. And I need to get, once again, these are out of order. I'm trying to find
21 pages of that. No wonder the show stinks so bad.
Sami Zayn promo on the way to the ring, produced by Devon Hughes or Devon Hughes. That's Devon Dudley, isn't it? Devon Hughes.
No, that's his son. What?
His son's a producer?
Wait a minute. Well, wait a minute. Well, but I thought his sons are Daryl but nobody calls Devon Devon.
Well, it says Devon. Again, I read it as Devon because typically when you see that name, it would be Devon. But Devon Hughes.
Is it Devon?
It is.
That's Devon. That's not Devon. Devon is D-V-O-N.
Well, it says I think it's the same guy here.
Well, goddamn, why now they're giving... I get, but now, you know what? I started to laugh at that, but they actually do call the boys by their real names now in conversation and when they're talking to each other. They call the guys by their real fucking names now. That's another thing they do that confuses the fuck out of me.
Okay, so Devon Dudley's one
I bet they would, if Abdullah the Butcher had been the fucking producer, they would have producer, Larry Shreve.
Devon Dudley's one of the producers. Who do you think is the other producer of that segment?
Why would there need to be two fucking producers? Was it for what is this now?
Sami Zayn's promo on the way to the ring.
How long is it going to take him to get to the ring? What's one guy's going to blow up telling him everything to say? The other guy has to tag in and finish it? What the fuck? How many people does it take to screw a light bulb in? Here, come here. Generico, here's what you're supposed to say on the way to the ring. You got the microphone, say this, that, and the other thing, and blah, blah, blah. Go. What the fuck? Two producers, I have no idea.
Well, segment 21 is Sami Zayn promo on the way to the ring. And then that leads to segment, or that was segment 20. Segment 21.
Well, wait a minute. No, that's not segment. That's item.
Item 20, excuse me.
Because there's only, in a 2-hour, well, it's a 3-hour program for Raw, right? They still can't have 21
No, Smackdown,
segments.
2 hours.
Or Smackdown. Okay, is it a line item or is it a segment?
It's a separate item, but it's the end of that segment.
Every item has a different number, right?
Yes.
Okay, segment 1.
Oh, this is segment 4. It says right here.
Okay,
4.
see, here's another screwy thing that they do. Their formats got so big that instead of just saying, now we're talking about seg 5, what item number? Because they would number all the items from top of the show to bottom. Entrance music for this guy, number 1. Entrance music for that guy, number 2. Introductions, number 3. Match, number 4. Music after number 5, all this shit. So then you had to I'm talking about item number 62. Oh, that's in segment 9. It's fucking ridiculous. Anyway, item number 21 in seg 4.
The other producer in that segment, you didn't guess it.
I said I couldn't.
Jason Jordan.
Oh.
We just saw him on the roster and said, what happened to that guy?
But he's the guy, he had a neck injury and they've made him an agent. He's the guy that had the neck injury, right?
I believe so, yes.
They've made him an agent. I again ask, why did there need to be two agents for a fucking guy's 45-second promo on the way to the ring?
Do you have any problem with two agents for a match? Like, for instance, Shotzi and Tegan Knox versus Natalya and Tamina?
Hey, sometimes it can be nice having a couple of different people around, but not when you're setting a fucking match up. God damn it, what? It's like they're doing open heart surgery. Okay, here's a fucking match between A and B. Here, get one of the guys to go agent it so he can come back and tell the truck what they're going to do so they can shoot it. God damn it. Especially for underneath matches, there needs to be multiple people having their fingers in this. How did they make this so complicated?
The agents for this match are Shane Helms and John Laurinaitis.
Go! And what was the match again?
Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Knox versus Natalya Neidhart, or I guess just Natalya, and Tamina.
I wouldn't see anything there that I wouldn't think that Hurricane could probably take care of, that we needed to bring Laurinaitis in. One of the heavy hitters. What's he going to give him, a fucking 6-man tag finish from All Japan in 1996?
He did such a good job scouting the women. Maybe now he just wants to work with them on their matches. Apparently there was a brawl at the end here because it says, while all the women are brawling, physicality between all 4 women with Liv Morgan looking good. So she's getting priority treatment there. Let's see.
Again, the reason why that all this stuff was just given out verbally in the days of wrestling was so that assholes like us couldn't get a hold of this paperwork and make fun of them.
Apparently Otis and Chad Gable are now together as some kind of unit.
Well, I hope they have a very happy life.
That's not what I meant, and you know that. Ladies and gentlemen, Baron Corbin. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here of any interest. There's lots of, just everything they say on the show is scripted. Cesaro versus Otis. The producer was Adam Pearce.
Okay. Where do we go from there? I like Adam.
Adam
I'm
Pearce.
sure he's probably able to take care of a match between Otis and Sistrunk or whoever.
And the other producer I see listed here, oh, I forgot about this guy. Baron Corbin's promo. The producer is Chris Park.
Abyss! Okay, now they have Abyss producing promos when Abyss never spoke. But I guess his alter ego did. You know, that's another. I loved that gimmick, Abyss. And I thought he was one of the best working big men in the business. When I saw him first, Ring of Honors, where I saw him first, like 2005, before I'd even gone to TNA the next year. But then I'm like, this guy is a fucking superstar, right? The problem was he got the Mick Foley bug too. He had to do the hardcore shit. And he couldn't see that he was a huge guy with a different look that could move like a cruiserweight, and all of his shit looked good and didn't hurt people and just work. He had to do the hardcore shit and the thumbtacks. One time he came up to me after one of those matches. He's like, was it okay? Was it okay? I said, you have a 200 thumbtacks sticking in you. Go take the thumbtacks out of you, right? Fuck. And I would try to pitch stuff to Dutch because Dutch was on creative. I was just agenting. But I would say, you know, Abyss could do this and that. He said, the problem is Abyss will do everything. And it even got to the point where he'd taken bumps off the stage through tables and through barbed wire and fucking thumbtacks. And I think they set him on fire once or whatever. No, I tell a lie. They hadn't set him on fire yet. But they finally, because he wouldn't stop. Not only did he want to be in these matches, but he wouldn't work like a monster because that way he couldn't take all those bumps through shit. So he had to fucking put everybody's shit over, and he got beat up and mutilated so bad so many times they finally left him off TV for 6 months. They said there's nothing else anybody can do to him. He's such a nice guy. He's such a good talent. He won't get out of his own way. Let's fucking take him off TV for 6 months, and then we'll bring him back and try to push him again like a monster. And, of course, Shitstain was still there writing the show at that time. So within, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks after he came back after that time off television, that's when he took a bump off the stage, threw a table to the floor while the table was on fire, catching himself on fire in the process in the impact zone. And I told Dutch that night on the way back to the hotel, I said, you took him off TV for 6 months because of this, and now he's just been back for a month and he set himself on fire. And he just rolled his eyes. We all loved the guy, but you couldn't make him a star. You couldn't make him a top guy because he couldn't get away from the garbage wrestling. And he didn't realize how big and impressive he was just working. If I'd have had him in the 80s, he would have been a better Big Bubba Rogers than Big Bubba Rogers was just from his working ability and his look. But Bubba, after 10 matches, got the goddamn psychology of wrestling better than poor Abyss ever has, I guess, yet. And that's why Bubba became the boss man and became a huge fucking star.
Well, Abyss, we'll close with this. He produced this Baron Corbin segment. You've been following the exploits of Baron Corbin?
Since he lost his Possum Kingdom, no, I have not.
Well, here at segment 9, we opened up with a wide shot voiceover note, set up and tossed to a VTR package entitled The Continued Downward Spiral of Baron Corbin. And then we get a live shot of Baron Corbin in the ring with RF Mike, producer Chris Park. Here's the promo. It's no secret the past few weeks have been the most difficult time of my life. You all just saw it. I lost everything. My crown, my car, my investments, my savings.
Wait a minute. What?
What happened? You saw him lose the crown, right?
Yeah, he lost the fucking, because Shinsuke is the new king. So they're just swapping the king of the ring crown or whatever amongst middle card guys. But his investments, his car, it's been 3 weeks, right?
I'm behind on my mortgage.
What? He hasn't even had time to make another payment. You just lost the thing last month.
And the bank is threatening to start foreclose proceedings.
Oh, God damn it. What? Wait a minute.
My daughter is sick because she has to eat canned pasta instead of...
There hasn't even been enough time for the food in his pantry to spoil.
My place is a mess because we can't afford our housekeeper.
God.
If this continues, we're going to have to move in with my wife's parents. At this point, we have a bullet point that says reactions. Corbin pauses to compose himself. And then he continues. But there's some good news. Everyone here and watching at home can help me get out of this deep, dark financial hole. I've started a crowdfunding website called Corbin Fund Me. And then Baron Corbin tosses to the Tron, where Corbin Fund Me graphic comes on. I'm only asking for a small amount, just enough to get me back on my feet and catch up with my bills. $100,000. All you have to do is go to CorbinFundMe.com and donate whatever you can. Please, come on. Don't tell me you people in Texas are as cheap as everywhere else. And then it says in parentheses, more pathetic. Please. Now he gets on his knees.
Now they're telling him to be more pathetic.
More pathetic.
I don't think that instruction needed to be written down.
Corbin gets on his knees. I'm literally begging you. Please help me. I can't go on like this. And that's Smackdown.
They've done this with remember when Stephanie was emasculating everybody and cutting their balls off and sticking them in her back pocket? It would be like, I'll fire you. And then everybody, even didn't Big Show one time
go Big Show
about that?
Yeah, he was crying.
Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. These people are supposed to be professional athletes. They're supposed to be highly paid stars. They're not going to go broke in 3 weeks. And they're not even going to go broke at all. They shouldn't. I'm sure some of them probably will in real life, but in storyline, in kayfabe, as the kids say, they shouldn't be going broke at all. They should be in demand around the world from any wrestling promoter that would care to fucking bid on their services, and they should pick and choose. People don't want to see stars that are scant days away from being kicked out of their house. They can look at their fucking family and see those people. This whole thing is insane.
Well, one final thing I noticed here, there was a fatal four-way, Big E versus Kevin Owens versus King Nakamura versus Seth Rollins, the producers, Jamie Noble, and Sean Daivari.
I like Sean Daivari a lot, and I like Jamie Noble. I don't know him as well, haven't worked with him as many times as I have with Sean. But you can't blame those guys. They've got a job. They're getting paid. It's not their fault that the fucking program they work on sucks, and that the writers have done this to it, because they both have been in the wrestling business. They know what it's supposed to look like. They have to tell the people now, oh, this is so much better the way you all do it now than the way we used to do it. But they know. But so you can't blame those guys because all this shit sucks. You have to blame the way that it's being done, and that's the people at the top making the decisions. I'm sure Sean Daivari would like to say, hey, you two guys, come here. You got 14 minutes, you over. Go fucking wrestle. Don't fuck up. Like we used to do. But he can't do that anymore.
All right, well, we've gone for a long time here today. So
yes, we have.
It's time to wrap things up.
I feel like Meltzer. Droning on without saying anything. Over and over and over.
I have to say, too, what you read before, which was in this week's Observer, even if you wanted that to be your message, there had to be a better way to write it so that it made sense. You know, I mean,
the thing is, it doesn't make sense. You can't make it make sense.
It read like a frantic statement.
It's a frantic statement because he can't say anything that makes sense about this, because they can't figure out a way to, how do they neutralize Cornette? That's what all of them want to know. He's telling the truth. A lot of people are listening because he's pointing it out, and you can go back and watch the shows and see what he's talking about, and you can experience it for yourself. He's never changed his story for years and years and years because it wasn't made up. It's legitimate. That's the way he feels, and he don't give a fuck whether anybody knows it. How the fuck do we deal with him? Let's try to figure out something There's got to be some way we can make him sound like he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that you get frantic statements written by people of questionable fucking intent as a result of that. I stand by every statement I've ever made.
Well, let's get a song on the way out.
Except for when I sent Dave Meltzer Christmas cards. I take that back.
Well, you can't take it back. You just wouldn't do it again.
No, I take them back.
You can't take it back. It happened.
I take every Christmas card I ever sent Dave Meltzer back. I don't mean them anymore. I do not wish him to have happy holidays.
In 1993.
Or in 1989, 1993, 1997, whatever. Whichever years that I wished him to have happy holidays, I hope now we're not happy.
But with that, the drive-thru is closed. All right.
See, everybody now is going, who's Murray Wilson? Was he in the group?
There was a cartoon series a few years ago. A few years ago. I was at Sony. It was a while ago. It was on the internet. It was great. It was a little Murray Wilson cartoon series where the catchphrase was, I'm a genius too, you know. Because there are those recordings of him trying to produce the Beach Boys, which are just the most embarrassing recordings ever. But,
Stage parents.
Right.
Parents. They'll get you every time. Close this thing up.
Of course, you can hear the Jim Cornette Experience when it debuts Saturday, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Get access to classic episodes of the Drive-Thru and the Experience. Patreon.com/Cornette. For only $5 a month, you get access to the archives from the very beginning. In 2013, another big batch of episodes just went up. Patreon.com/Cornette. Check out the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel for exclusive Travis Heckel artwork escorting the clips, the full episodes, and the omnibus collections. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel.
Wait, what did you say? Travis's artwork escorting the clips? Well, I didn't know that Travis had that escort service opened up finally. I'm glad to see he's branching out.
Man, Louisville's really going to shit. But anyway.
Not with Travis's new escort service.
No, of course not. But speaking of escorts, if you're looking for a good time, JimCornette.com, and of course, Cornette's Collectibles.
But not yet.
Not yet.
You cannot be escorted by them yet. Probably about another 4 weeks, folks, and then we're finally going to have it ready and we're going to do it. I'm enjoying having a real life. I've had projects on the back burner for years, and now that I'm not filling the orders, I'm trying to get everything done and caught up so that we can start back in.
We're almost 8 months into this year. How many weeks has the store been open? How many days?
Store was open for 16 days and grossed 6 figures. So we're working on the new website. Yes, that's what we're doing.
At JimCornette.com. You can follow Jim on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me on Twitter in this fucking squeaky fucking chair. At Great Brian Last. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Don't forget, the Drive-Thru is brought to you by the Law Office of Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until Saturday on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive-Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Tally-ho!